Thank you, Rachel. Meeting is called to order. Hello, everyone. Welcome to CFA's December 3rd, 2024 Executive Board Meeting. Our first order of business is to approve the orders of the day. Does anyone have any additions or changes? Rachel?
I have a note on our new business show scheduling, and I need to get a clarification from John Kalila if that will be an open or closed session.
John?
Close, please.
Closed. Okay, so I'm like to move that we move item number 18, A, new business, to closed session. And if we could do it at the end of closed session, that would be, I'm sorry, I should be more specific about we're in closed session. After number 24.
Okay. Daryl, are you seconding that motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, are there any objections to moving item 18, new business, show scheduling to executive session after item number 24? Okay, seeing no objections, that motion passes. Are there any additional changes or additions to the open session agenda orders of the day? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the orders of the day? Daryl? Are you making a motion?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Kenny, are you a second?
Kenny
Thank you.
seconds.
Thank you. Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, our first agenda item. Rachel, ratification of online motions.
First, there's no additions or corrections to the minutes. I'd also like to move for approval of the October 15th and 16th, 2024 Zoom video conference board meeting minutes as published.
Daryl, are you a second?
I am.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Rachel, go ahead and continue.
Thank you. I'd like to move to ratify online motions 1 through 5 as published.
Daryl, are you a second?
Yes, sir. Can I be a standing second?
Yes, that would be helpful. Hopefully Rachel doesn't have any more. That'd be great.
Okay.
Any discussion? Pam?
I'm only showing, excuse me, I'm only showing 1 through 4, not 5. Oh, wait, never mind. I see the screen now.
Not sure where that noise came from, but it's gone.
That was Janet.
Okay. Daryl, do you have any comments? Go ahead, Daryl. You're on
I
mute.
forgot to lower my hand. Sorry.
Oh, okay, very good. Any further discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Rachel, do you have anything further?
I do not. I'm gonna try to help you by being the police for running the business correctly. If we get off track, I'm going to raise my hand and interject for
Thank you. And thank you for pointing that out. We do have a busy agenda. Just remind the board, I'm not going to accept motions or seconds by shouting out. Raise your hand. I'll call you in order. I'm going to ask the board not to speak over other board members. Allow them to speak fully, and then I will call on you once you raise your hand. For board reports, I am encouraging all presenter of board reports, please do not read the report. Take us to the highlights that are important that need to be pointed out. The board has fully read the reports. At least I hope they read the reports. Let's get to the action items and move forward. We will end the meeting at 11:59 PM, no matter where we are on the agenda. No good things happen after midnight, at least not in my town. Okay, Aline, I see you promoted, Vicky Nye, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I see you, Vicky.
And just, I have Howard. He's joining by phone. So he's in the audience and he's just going to be identified by iPhone.
Okay.
I'm trying-
I see
and-
iPhone.
Yep, that is Howard.
Okay, and I see a picture of him.
Okay, I'll change his name.
Before we, Vicky, hang on one second. Vicky Nye, hang on one second, please. Howard, can you hear me okay? Howard, can you unmute? All right. All right, Howard, do you agree that you are accepting the board oath and confidentiality agreement? Give me a thumbs up with your, okay, that'll do. Rachel, I got that, so everybody is in. Okay, Vicky Nye, and Vicky, I'll either refer to you as Miss Nye or Vicky Nye because we have Vicky Jensen on as well, and I
Got it.
don't want to confuse the two. Okay, Vicky Nye, go ahead.
Thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you regarding the judging program activities. I'm going to skip over this brief summation and current happenings of the committee. As Rich has indicated, you have all read this, and skip right to the motions regarding the judging program rules as they apply to trainee paperwork and advancing judges. Do we want to set it up so that Russell is the motion maker for all three of these?
Russell, will you be the standing motion as the co-chair to this committee?
Yes.
And Daryl, do you want to be the standing second?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you all.
Okay,
8.4
Vicky Nye, continue.
Thank you. 8.4B speaks to training paperwork. This is a work in progress. When we move administrations from one to the next with the judging program, our feeling is that this should be a training program. It should not be a test and fail program. And so our objective is consistent improvement from training session to training session, and people are going to make mistakes. So 8.4, we tried to originally document what it really was. This wasn't documented at all prior to October. We have taken another approach, and the new paperwork error has to do with any paperwork errors, marking errors, other than a mechanical error. They will be subject to just coaching with the individual, and repeated errors over multiple sessions will be addressed separately. But if they make an error, if they forget a 1B or they don't mark an absentee correctly, we will get them into the habit of doing so. Additionally, a mechanical error should not be the cause to totally not count a session. There's so much more that goes into a training session: how to handle the discussion of the breed standards, how to make a decision, that totally dropping a training session is frankly unfair. And I don't think it speaks to the essence of what the judging program really wants to reflect at this point. So I'm asking this board to accept 8.4, whatever this one is now, 8.4B as written for the reasons that I've just provided.
Okay, thank you, Vicky Nye. Daryl?
Can we scroll down so that we can see what we're voting on?
Oh, you need to scroll up then,
Oh,
right there. Oops. Down a little bit, Aline. Starts with the underlined blue section and then the rationale.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments for Vicky? Kenny? You're on mute, Kenny.
Just want to thank the judging program committee for finally realizing it's a training to judge cats. And thank you for making this change. I'm going to support.
Any further comments or questions? Any objections? Seeing no objections, motion passes unanimously. Vicky Knight, great job to you and your committee on making that change to this. The board had asked you and your team to work on it, and I personally send you a thank you on that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I think the judging program committee is happy with this change too. And I want to thank Kenny for his support. The second change has to do with the number of cats it takes for a first specialty or second specialty trainee to get through the program. Worldwide, we are seeing a reduction in the entries of cats, and in some areas, it's really skewed long hair to short hair. Things happen at shows. They get to a show and there's no judge's book, and they have to skip over some classes, so the trainee doesn't get the opportunity to handle everything. We think instead of 200, 150 cats better reflects what the ability is to get through this program. And this applies to first and second specialty judges, goes from 200 to 100, 150, excuse me.
Okay, discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously.
The third set of changes have to do with 10.1, which is advancement procedures for apprentice and approval pending judges. Right now it's 300 cats and also 8 assignments. We would like to change that to 200 cats with favorable evaluations, which favorable is already there. So the change is 300 to 200, and also from 8 to 6. There were actually several members that thought everything was 6 sessions across the board anyway. And one of the issues is that when you become approval pending all breed, you already have a ton of contracts for double specialty assignments, and for having to make them wade through all that before they can get enough all breed assignments is not reflective of their experience. So that is what 10.1 does.
Okay, discussion? Vicky, I have a question for you. 10.1D. Do we need to add the word championship between the number 6 and shows as it is listed on the left side?
Yes, it does.
You're changing the 8 to 6, but you no longer have championship in between the number and shows.
Is this on B?
This is on D.
Oh, D, excuse me, that's why I misunderstood you. Yes, it should say championship shows there. Rachel, can you
I
include that?
changed it
Okay,
on the
Thank
screen.
you.
okay. Any further discussion? Any objections? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Vicky Nye. What else do you
Thank you
have?
to the board for your support. The next item here is to document the policy change, which occurred last December, where we voted not to allow first specialty trainees to train in mainland China. The reasons being are listed here, 1 through 7. We're still having difficulty with the NGOs, the time frame that it takes to license, and also here it is now 21 days, but even at 21 days, we don't find out about it for the judging program until about 2 weeks, because central office gets it in, approves the license, and then it has to get posted, and then we see who the judging panel is. Then we can reach out to the central office to find who the show manager is. And of course, the issues with the NGO, the fact that they don't have the trainees approved in the NGO. Concentration of cats and long hairs and short hairs in just a few breeds, so they don't get a good cross section of our breeds to train. And once they're trained as in the regular CFA judging program, they can now go judge everywhere. So this documents it. It was challenged last February and it stood. And so we want to make sure that this is documented and not in closed session reports where no one can see it. There's
Does
no
anybody-
action item here.
Okay, anybody have any questions specific to this? Okay. Vicky Knight, please continue.
I have been, as typical, when I see judges have been ill or not judging, I contact them. I spoke with Kathy Dennison just a week or so ago. Again, she has submitted a leave of absence request until June 1st. So I wanted to document that. This applies also to her relicensing, so she is on leave of absence right now. I also received the retirement letter of Bob Salisbury. It was accepted with regret. We totally understand. We have had Bob's support in the judging ring for nearly 44 years. But at 86, he's saying it's pretty hard to get on a plane and then go stand behind a judging table all day. So my sincere thanks to Bob for all his years of service with CFA.
Okay,
Next, this just outlines the applications that you will have in for February, which is 3 first specialty applications and 1 second specialty application. We have on board now, we only accept applications for consideration for February, June, and October. Also outlining the advancements that come up in closed session this time. Keep scrolling. Okay, the Breed Awareness School was held in Cleveland this last year in October. This was just the individuals that participated and in what method some of them were at classroom and supervised handling, and others attended for one or the other. Going on to the current happenings of the committee, we were planning on the Breed Awareness School to occur in Japan, and Aki Tamura is not able to at this time obtain a 2-day show and a facility to do the Breed Awareness School. I have been working with a group in Thailand, and as what you see here right now is not actually correct. I just found out last night that Jay of Central Breed Cat Club has declined to go ahead and put this on, and they are looking for approval and buy-in from another club in Thailand to go ahead and do this. I really would like to have it supported in this area. We have lots of interest from Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and even Vietnam. So that's a work in progress. As soon as we get it nailed down and have the agreement of this club and the facility, we'll go ahead and publish the flyer and get it available so that they can sign up for it. That's it for the Breed Awareness School. On mentoring and recruitment, mentoring is, though it's not a new concept, what we're asking of the mentors now is much more than what we had. It's more structured. We want them to be in contact and to actually be more active with the pre-applicants and the trainees as they're going through the program. It takes time, and we want to reward the judges with continuing education points for doing this. In many cases, it actually sharpens our judges that are mentors up with the show rules and the judging program rules. So we offered up 1 continuing education point for each person they are mentoring for each continuing education period. This was the email that was sent out to the judging panel through our communication with some of the areas in which they would help their pre-applicants and trainees. All they need to collect this is to send an email to Teresa Sweeney indicating who they are mentoring and what their activities have been. I will also be changing the report card to add this in so that they will, not forget it when they send their report cards to Ann Mathis.
Okay, Kathy,
Yeah.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, having a little computer difficulty here, so I wanted to check and make sure. So this is, can we just go back for a second to the BAOS plans? So I was current on the Japan, but now my real question is, Vicky, snow flurries tomorrow. Do you have sufficient funds within the budget to do this?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you won't be coming.
There won't be any airfares associated with this. It's the room, the cost for the room, and would be 6 hotel room nights. As far as I know, that would be the only cost associated with this to have, because we are planning on the judges that are doing the show to be the faculty of the show.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Vicky and I continue.
I think we've done that. The mentoring. Okay, guest judging. We always provide you a listing of what we've approved for guest judges, but Wendy Height went back and compared how many guest judges from other associations judge for CFA each show season, and how many CFA judges judge for the other associations. I want you to keep in mind, though, it's not necessarily judging that is reflected here. Sometimes it's putting on a seminar or a fun show, but it still takes them out of judging for a CFA show. So it started off as 63 CFA judges, 64, and then 117, but that ramped up because of all the fun shows that were occurring. Right now it's 99, but that does not reflect a full show season. That is the approvals through November 19th. However, they will continue on, and this will only reflect those. This number, I'll give you an update on it, but it would only be through April 30th, 2026. So we have the same data.
Through 2026 or 2025?
2025.
Okay,
So you can see there's within here, we've got seminar, 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 fun show, seminar. I mean, there's a lot of less guest judging than there is seminars typically. And you can see that this list actually goes past the end of the show season. We've got a 7/19/25 and a couple of show in 26.
okay.
It's just so that you're aware of where CFA judges are working and how many guest judges we are actually having at CFA shows. It's much
Well-
reduced than it was prior to COVID, though.
Okay, well, thank you to all the CFA judges guest judging and to the guest judges judging for CFA.
Yeah, they're definitely representing CFA when they're putting on these seminars, whether it be how to run a cat show versus a breed seminar. There's many, many topics that are put on, even clerking schools that are managed by CFA judges.
Okay,
Continuing education.
let's see. Kathy, do you have a question on the guest judging?
No,
Kathy?
I do not.
Okay,
I'll lower my hand.
okay. Okay, Vicky and I continue with the continuing education.
Because sometimes this is a moving target for these judges. It's due every 5 years, but a lot of people don't realize when their last one was sent in or if they sent it in early. So we actually sent out a reminder with a list of what judges fall in which year for their continuing education so that they would have that. That's what was published on the continuing education or the current happenings of Ann's committee. We will have a lot of them due in 2026.
Okay,
And I think we're getting close to the end here.
yep.
That's it for the judging program.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments for Vicky? Vicky, Vicky Nye, I see no hands up. Wonderful job. Thank you. Do you have anything else for the board?
I do not. The rest of it's in closed session.
Okay, Vicky Nye, we'll see you during our executive session. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Kathy, you have the treasurer's report?
Okay. Thank you, President Maston. I trust that you reviewed the treasurer's report. There's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of detail. Folks have been asking for details. Here they are. I would draw your attention to the net operating income, which is on probably the third page of the screen which is simply income versus expenses, and we are at negative 94,000. Because of the other elements of the business, income, rentals, and so on and so forth, we have the bottom line is net income of 9,000, almost 10,000. But the real line item that I want to draw your attention to is the net operating income. We'll be talking about this throughout the year, and I'd like to leave it at that for this part of my presentation, unless people have questions.
Any questions for Kathy? Okay, Kathy, thank you. Continue.
Okay, so the Budget Committee report, this is not new news. This is virtually the same report that has been published since August. Drawing your attention to that the committee liaisons are the individuals that should be presenting their budget request to the Budget Committee, as opposed to the individuals. There's a reason for that, because at the time when the budget is reviewed for approval, the liaison will be the voice of the committee. So you need to work hand in hand with the committee to understand why they may ask for what they are requesting. January 2nd, 2025 is a key date. We need to have your request in by then. That's it.
Any questions for Kathy on the Budget Committee? Hey, Kathy, seeing no questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Aline, is Mark Hannon
Yes.
available?
Yep,
He's
I'm
in.
here.
Oh, hi, Mark. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please summarize your report and then take us through any action items if you have any.
We don't have any action items. I've submitted the report. I assume everybody's read it. Putting on my publications chair hat quickly. Today, we sent out the last issue of Cat Talk magazine. And on the 15th of this month, we'll be sending out the last CFA newsletter. Both will be folded into the new blog that will be coming out in January, and we're very excited about the blog. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions or comments for Mark? No questions, Mark. Oh, Pam, I got you, Pam. Go ahead.
I can't find anywhere in my notes where it said we were doing away with the monthly newsletter that goes out to the clubs.
I'll be honest with you, Pam, I was taken by surprise as well. I heard about it 2 weeks ago. I had no input on it. I was just told it was happening.
I think that this should be a board. Oh, I'm sorry. May I speak,
Go
Rich?
ahead, Pam.
This is something that people do read. And especially the clubs, and I believe this should be a board action to decide whether we're going to do the newsletter or not.
Okay, Vicky.
I agree. The newsletter, I don't think costs anything. I mean, it's just we submit stuff of what's going on in our region and it gets emailed out. I don't think anybody even gets paid for this. And I do believe a lot of people look forward to it.
Okay.
I agree
Aline?
with Pam.
Okay, Aline.
Well, somebody actually does get paid for it because Teresa Kiger is the one responsible for the newsletter. So she has quite a bit of time put into the newsletter, and we're asking her to put a lot of time into the new Cat Talk blog. So there is that. The other thing is that some people read the newsletter, but it has a very small open rate. I shouldn't say small. Maybe 42% of the people it gets sent to actually open it, because I looked at the statistics. The third item is people will still be able to get all of this information through the blog. You just have to sign up for it. If you say, I still want to get regional information or what other information we put in the newsletter, you'll still get that, but you'll get it in a more timely basis. It won't have to wait for every month. You'll be able to get it practically as soon as the information is available. So it'll actually be much more timely. None of the information that's currently in the newsletter has to go away. People still submit the information. It'll simply go on the blog and it's available online, part of the website to anybody who wants it.
Okay, Eileen, before I call on Pam and Mark, you made a comment that 42% of the people that receive the newsletter open it. How many people receive the newsletter?
Gosh, I think I told you that, Mark. Was it about 2,500? I could get that information. I'll just have to get back to you in a few minutes.
Okay, that may be helpful to the board if they want to do something different to understand what that number is. Pam?
Reference the newsletter. I still think that this is something that the board should be voting on. The other thing is that it may be 42% open the individuals, but it's also posted to Facebook on various Facebook pages, plus the CFA official discussion page. So it's reaching a much further population than what may be showing as who's opening that newsletter.
Okay, Pam, thank you for sharing that. Mark?
Now, I don't agree with Eileen that the things that appear in the newsletter are going to appear in the blog. For example, a lot of the regional input is pictures from shows. We're not planning to do that in the blog. We may feature some particular shows, but we're not going to be putting in, just shows for the sake of shows. I noticed that in the last issue of the newsletter, there was Region 1 had a synopsis of what happened at a regional meeting. That is of limited interest. I don't think we're going to be putting that in the blog. We may have to set up a specific section of the blog for regional news like that. But if we're expecting John Q. Public to come in thousands to read the new blog, they don't need to hear what's going on at regional meetings.
Okay. Vicky?
Yes, I don't know if Eileen, when she's counting how many people are opening it, is including, I know that Region 5 gets it and then forwards it to the region. My secretary also gets it and forwards it to the region. So I don't think that those forwarded ones are getting counted. I know, and a lot of my constituents or my region are not going to go looking for a blog. Most of them, I have some that, are not all that computer savvy, but they do open the newsletter and they do keep track of that. So I'd hate to see that go away.
All right. Thank you. Pam?
When we approved the blog, it appeared to be more of a public awareness type thing of CFA, sort of go a little bit to the more public than our official discussion list on Facebook. I consider the newsletter to be targeted towards clubs and our exhibitors and breeders. I think that there's basically two separate populations that are targeted by these two different publications per se. So basically, I am very much against doing away with the newsletter at this time.
Okay. Eileen?
Just a couple of points. And that is, the blog is for everyone. I'm not sure if everybody understands how a blog works. You will get in whatever area you sign up for. If you want club information, we can have all that in the blog. You would receive an email saying, hey, this is up on the blog. This is new for you to look at. It's really no different than looking at the CFA newsletter. You would go to the blog, it can even deliver to you that that headline, for instance, and you click on that and you can see the club information. So it's just a different way of doing a newsletter. It's a more modern way to do it. It's what people do. And then the second point, and then I'll stop. It's a resource issue. Teresa spends a lot of time on the newsletter. She has to pull the information from people. She has to drag it out. A lot of it has to still be edited. She spends quite a bit of time. We're asking her to now put that time into the blog, which is resource heavy. So we can't do it all. You know, where do we want to put our resources? Something's going to suffer. Do we want the blog to suffer, which is out there for everyone to see? Or is there a different way that clubs can get their information? And it is different. It's through the blog instead of a CFA newsletter. And that's really what I wanted to say.
Okay, so you're done for now, Eileen?
I'm done for now.
Okay, because I see Pam's got her hand up for the fourth time. I'm not gonna call on you yet, Pam. I'm gonna go to Russell, Kathy, then you, then Mark. Russell?
Yeah, I'm concerned with the JPC because in the newsletter, that's where we put the announcements and advancements of the judges. Would that be in the blog?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Eileen, are you still addressing Russell's question?
yes, it will be in the blog. It would come under, you know, we may have a heading or a topic area, judging. We also still have the news notice that goes out to everybody, you know, so we can still publish news in the news notice if we want to publish the advancement of judges or something like that. So the newsletter isn't going away. It's changing. It's different. The information is still going to be out there. It's just a different way of getting information.
Okay, so Russell, are you done?
Yes.
Eileen, I'm gonna try and speed up this discussion. I want to give the board their full time on this concern because what I'm hearing, they're concerned about it. How much of a hardship is it going to be for Teresa Kiger in doing both until the board is comfortable in releasing the newsletter?
Well, it's going to be a hardship because she is trying to get the blog off the ground. Mark's shaking his head no, but I talked to Teresa. We've talked about it. So what I would suggest is perhaps we not have the newsletter. Let's see how this pans out. If for some reason it's not providing what you're looking for within the first couple of months, then we bring back the newsletter. And maybe it's a little bit different format for the newsletter, depending on the specific information you're looking for. But we can automatically sign everybody up for the blog who is already in the newsletter, who already receives the newsletter. So, I'm just, could we give it a try? Is a couple of months. If it doesn't work out, and we look at bringing the newsletter back.
Well, that may be a little bit of a selling point to the board. I'm not sure they're convinced yet. We'll see. Kathy?
So I think this could go on for a long time and we don't really have that sort of time. So maybe in a separate thing, there could be a content comparison. One for one, what are you getting in the blog and what are you getting in the newsletter? So we don't have a difference of opinions in that. What a content comparison, and also a realistic and in a different format, maybe even a different session in a closed session to talk about what is the resources going to cost us to do both. That's not a conversation to have here, but it's a conversation that needs to be had for the budget.
Okay, Kathy, you have anything else?
I do not.
All right, Pam.
We have gone from the CFA quarterly to the CFA almanac to CFA Cat Talk, and then through newsletter to get our information about. Blog is, the public perception of blog is something that's somewhat informal. You know, you can post your recipes and stuff on a blog. My question is, please don't talk over me. My question is, why was the board not informed of this to discuss this at a much earlier point than be able to tell this source of information is going away? Because newsletter is considered somewhat official. Blog is considered somewhat informal.
Okay. Aline, do you want to answer the question before I call on Mark?
Sure. I thought it was mentioned in a report to the board. It was, I don't believe it was a board, well, I know it wasn't a board motion. I thought it was mentioned when we were talking about, I just had a cat all over the keyboard, I'm sorry. I thought the board was informed. It was in the middle of a report. It may have been missed. It may not have been obvious what was being talked about, but I thought that the board was informed.
So it was in what report, Aline?
I don't know. I'd have to go back. It was
Okay.
probably was in, I don't know. I'd have to go back. It probably would have been in May or June when we were talking about transitioning Cat Talk from a paid subscription to a online complimentary, and eventually it would be turning into the Cat Talk business blog. So I do want to point out that a business blog is very different from an individual's blog where they might post something like recipes or it's one person talking. There will still be articles on the blog just as they were in the newsletter and in Cat Talk. So it's not a, it's a business blog, which is different from a personal blog.
Okay, Mark?
I speak from a unique perspective, and I'm the one that created the newsletter. I'm the one who edited the newsletter for a number of years. So I have experience, and I know my experience was it took me a day or two to prepare the newsletter. I got all the submissions that Teresa now gets, and I massaged them and I put them out within a day or two. If we're going to be putting these on the blog, Teresa's still going to have to go through the exercise of going through these things and editing them, you know, making sure the punctuation is correct, the spelling is correct, you know, that it's phrased the way it was intended. There's still going to be work on her part to put this information in the blog. You know, and the board wasn't informed. I can tell you as the publications chairman in charge of this, of the newsletter, I was not informed. As co-chair of the marketing committee, I was not informed until within the last 2 weeks. This is a decision that was not made by the committees.
Okay, Carol?
I have to agree with Mark. I mean, this whole thing should have been run past the board. I do recall that perhaps in June or maybe at an August meeting or something, there was mention that a blog would be created, but there was no mention that the newsletter would be incorporated into that blog and done away with eventually. I think there's information in the newsletter that people like to see. Everyone is used to receiving it. They're used to looking into it for certain information about regions, about legislative, and about other things. I really believe that we should keep the newsletter. And if there's a movement to do away with it, it should be a board decision.
Okay, Mark, are you able to help Teresa with the newsletter?
If she needs it, I don't think she needs it.
Okay.
I'm helping her with the blog. You
Okay,
know, I'm
so
coming up
you
with,
just agreed you would help if she needs it, correct?
yeah.
Okay, Aline, what I'm hearing is the board's not in support of this. If the board wants to, if any board member wants to discontinue the newsletter, and some of you are getting it firsthand right now, we need a motion. And I need to point out that motion needs 2/3 to carry because this is not a pre-notice motion. Ed, do I have that correct?
Yes, you do.
Okay, Rachel, are you making a motion?
I will make that motion, but can I also make a comment?
Yes, you can.
This was brought up in the October 2024 board meeting under marketing. There was talk about Cat Talk and a business blog, and we were informed that Teresa Kiger continues to populate the Cat Talk business blog in preparation for the debut in January of 2025. So
Okay,
this
Rachel, how were we informed? What report was that in?
this was in the marketing report of the October 2024 board meeting.
But did it say the newsletter?
Rachel, did it say the newsletter would be discontinued?
That's not in here, no.
That is not in there. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I need a second on this motion if we're to continue it. Russell, are you seconding?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. The motion is to discontinue the newsletter. I'm not going to ask for any further discussion. I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to call for the vote. If you're in favor, raise your hand. Rachel, nobody raised. Marilee? I have Marilee as in favor. Marilee, lower your hand. If you're opposed, raise your hand. Just a reminder, please keep your hand up until I ask everybody to lower their hand. Carissa, Daryl, Vicky, Kenny, Carol, Pam, Paulie, Aki, Dorianne, Janet, Russell, John, and Ann. Please lower your hand.
I have one more thing to mention.
Okay, let me finish calling the vote, Eileen. If you're an abstention, raise your hand. Howard, Kathy. Lower your hand. Rachel, can you call the vote?
I do have a question. That one so quickly. I missed Kalila, Delabar, and Mathis.
Okay. Pam, tell me how you voted.
I voted against.
Thank you. John, tell me how you voted.
I voted against.
And Ann, tell me how you voted.
I voted against.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, Rachel, what do you have?
that's 1 yes, 14 no, 2 abstentions.
114, that's 17. Okay, Eileen. Oh, motion fails. Eileen, go ahead.
Actually, I want to take it to executive session.
Okay,
So I'll hold my comments until then.
that's fine. My recommendation, Eileen, is to further discuss this with the marketing committee and bring something back in January. And let's get some more information here to the board. Okay, Mark, do you have anything further?
Did you really mean bring this back in January? We're having a
Well,
January meeting?
I'm sorry, I meant February.
Okay, as co-chair of the marketing committee, I was concerned.
No, I'm sorry, Mark.
Okay,
Yeah, I meant February.
okay,
Okay, do you have anything else, Mark?
nope.
Okay, Mark, thank you to you and your committee. Does anybody else have any questions for Mark before he leaves? Okay, Mark, thank you. All right, Janet, new exhibitor committee report?
Well, this is pretty self-explanatory. As I stated in the last meeting, we feel that our best potential for growing our exhibitor base is the people that pay to come to our cat shows. They're cat lovers and they all have cats. And so we wanted to create a fun and engaging piece to hand out at the gate. And we're going to experiment with this at our first show my show in 2 weeks. So it's a half-page piece, so it shouldn't be hard to reproduce. And if anybody has any input on it or comments, we welcome them.
Any questions or comments? Janet, there are no questions. Oh, Kathy?
Okay, I had an opportunity to look at this and I think this is a wonderful idea. Low cost, big impact. And it's the presentation and the wording is it's very easy, it's very amenable, it makes you smile, and I think this was a great job, Janet. Great job.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Kathy. Janet, do you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you to you and your committee. Eileen, can you promote Ginger Meeker?
She's in.
Oh, hi, Ginger.
She's on mute.
Okay.
Not anymore. Got it.
Welcome, Ginger.
Thank you. Is
Ginger, I
Jackie
don't know
on
if you,
also?
I don't know if you heard me in the beginning of the meeting. Summarize your report. Please don't go through the whole thing. Hit the highlights. And if you have motions, let's get to them.
We don't have any motions. Basically, what we've recommended to the board, and I would like Jackie also to speak on this, is that we think this double mutation show rule needs more input from other stakeholders. As far as I can see reading through it, it sounds more like it's a policy rather than a show rule, that if it's instituted as a policy, then the show rules could be devised to support the policy. I also think that, or the committee also thought that the household pet community needed, with the help of perhaps the genetics committee or some other group of people, to determine their stance on what a household pet is. I think they really need to answer the question, do they want to support and elevate the beauty of the random bred household pet, or do they want to determine how many odd things they can find on one cat, which is a concern with the doubling up on a double mutation, a double structural mutation issue. So we are just recommending that this gets a little more look, that the household pet people have more input. There's a lot of language that isn't fully expressed or understood yet, like it needs to be double structural mutation, that we're concerned about having the health impact rather than just a double mutation. Jackie, did you have something else to add to this?
Sure. So as Ginger mentioned, you can see what we've achieved when we're talking about the committee, but what we think we've come up with is a solution that is a compromise that empowers all of the people who are involved. And that is not creating a policy that may or may not be read or may not be enforceable, but providing some clear guidance. And our suggestion is that if we add into the preface of the breeds and standards a list of disqualifications that impact all cats which are in the show hall, unless otherwise specifically called out in the standard, we could list those things that are problems for preservation breeding to show that we're significant about the health and welfare of the cats. And then the household pet people, if they want to not exclude these things, if they could develop their own standard, the household pet committee could work to have a standard to describe what they do want, what they do not want within their household pet standard. And then they would have the ability to go to the board like any other breed committee to either get it approved or not approved. This would, it serves the benefit of giving a voice to the household pet people as a recognized part of the show, but it does make sure that we are aware, and it becomes a training tool for judges, exhibitors, and breeders. There are certain things that we don't want on any cat in the show hall. We don't want malocclusion. We don't want wry jaws. We don't want unsound hindquarters. When we talk about polydactylism, there are no breeds at this point who have it allowed in their standard, with the exception of the Maine Coon for breeding purposes only. But think about the risk of breeding polydactyl cats for the sake of polydactyl cats. You wind up with cats who can't walk. They can't trim their toes. They wind up with 18, 19 toes, etc. So, and also the concept of adding into that list the evidence or 2 or more structural mutations gives a clear definition. It's not going to disqualify the Cornish Rex who happens to be polydactyl, because curly hair is not going to adversely affect the health of a cat. It's not going to affect the Siamese who came out polydactyl or had, you know, a structural issue. Because remember, pointed gene, that's a mutation too. It lets you focus on the most at-risk mutations, structural mutations, cartilage and bone, the exhibit of 2 of those mutations, unless specifically called out again by the standard. So what we're trying to do is put something in a readily available, published document, the Breeds and Standards books, controlled by the Breeds and Standards Committee, giving judges, here are things that any cat in the show hall, these are automatic disqualifications unless the standard calls out specifically for it. If a breed disagrees with it, call it out in your standard. Get it through the board like we do with anything else. And then Household Pets would have the control of their system. But we don't want to encourage designer breeds. That was the whole point of what the delegation told us. We don't want people creating household pets by having a munchkinized Japanese bobtail with folded ears, which I believe we came up with a name for that at our last meeting. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was really funny. The point is that we want to give a tool to the board that would also allow a generic DQ list can be expanded or changed based on scientific evidence. So if the board sees a trait that they did not disqualify initially, but they find out through science, through additional testing, that that trait has significant health issues, dominant blue eyes, and this is just an example, I'm not telling the board what the list should be, or the Corin gene, for instance, now we're learning that it has heart issues, then the board and the Breeds and Standards Committee has the ability to massage this list over time. It becomes something that is written, and it eliminates show hall interpretation on the parts of judges and show officials. It makes it very, very clear what we do support and what we don't support. It isn't a show rule. It doesn't belong as a show rule. We're talking about the health and welfare of the cat. That's a Breeds and Standards Committee issue. So we truly feel that this suggestion may give the board a tool to address the concerns that were brought to the delegation back in June effectively and efficiently in a scalable and controlled manner. Please excuse the husky walking behind me.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Pam?
Other organizations do have a general disqualifications list that goes and affects all the breeds within their breeds and standards. But for what you want is right now something that would also have to come in front of the delegation to approve this. And it may or may not be all inclusive at this point in time. I think it's a subject well taken, but it's for further discussion. I believe that it does belong also in the show rules. As one, we have no standard for household pet. Secondly, we do have in our show rules how household pets are to be judged. So that it also would be there as well. And also for all of our particular cats on the show bench.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Ginger, before I call on you, I'm going to call on all the board members to bring forth any questions or comments. Then I'll call on you and Jackie last to close this out, okay?
Okay, That's
So
fine.
in front of the two of you is Carissa and Rachel. So Carissa,
I understand what they're trying to do by giving some control to breeds to decide what structural mutations they're okay with and what they are not. However, household pet exhibitors generally are not breeders. We don't want them to be breeding household pets. And therefore, I do not think they have a vested interest, nor ever will, on something like a breed standard. They simply do not understand it because they are only looking at the cat that is actually in their hands, which is not a breeding cat, or it should not be. They don't really think about, down the line, could this create health problems? They're only dealing with the animal that's actually in their hands. And I think they're not going to be capable of looking at things as a breed council does, considering the history of a breed and the future of a breed and how long that breed will exist after the breeder is no longer there. I understand where you're coming from. However, I think in this case, this needs to be handled by people who are breeders, who are here for the welfare of all cats, not just the one that's actually in our hands. Thank you.
okay, thank you, Carissa. Rachel,
Thank you. My question is more simple. I'm just curious what input the Breeds and Standards Committee has had on this proposal.
Daryl, do you have any input from Breeds and Standards on this?
No, sir.
Okay,
And my second question is, it's not clear to me is this just for contemplation? Some things for us to think about. There's not really an action item associated with it, but I can tell that a lot of work has gone into the presentation. What would you like us to do with it?
so the way I read the report, Rachel and Ginger and Jackie, you can correct me after I call on all the board members. This is what these are their suggestions that they are asking the board to take under consideration when they proceed with making a show rule or not. And I heard Ginger earlier, and I believe it's in the report here. It seems to me, by my account, you're recommending we get other committees involved in this discussion on where this goes. So before I call on Ginger and Jackie, are there any other questions or comments on this? Because we want to move on with the agenda. Okay, Vicky?
Yes, so we're back revisiting this issue with the multiple mutation cats that are being brought to the show halls, basically as an oddity. And being peddled in the show halls, which I don't think any of us want CFA being used for this kind of purpose. It was presented to the delegates as, and the delegates overwhelmingly said they do not want to see this happening in the show halls. We can, tear it apart, but we all know what we saw.
So Vicky, do you have any questions directed towards Jackie and or Ginger?
No.
Okay, because then at somewhere down the line here in the board reports, I believe this is coming up under show rules. Ed, is that correct?
Yes, the amendment will come up again under show rules.
Okay. All right. Ginger, you go first, and
Okay.
Jackie, let's wrap this up. Please don't repeat. Let's just address any of the specific points and questions. Ginger, go ahead.
Okay, on the double mutation show rule, I see it as having two parts. I believe that the group has already decided that we don't want the designer breeds that show the double mutation that is injurious to health. I think that is a given. What we haven't dealt with is the household pet that comes to the table that has double structural mutations. The health is impacted, what we do at that level. I think we sell our household pet breeders short when we say that they cannot learn or do not know genetics. I think it could be a boost to the entire cat fancy to educate every exhibitor on these issues and be aware that when they pick up a cat from rescue or it's an oops breeding from a breeder and they're going to show it, they need to be aware of what they're walking into. I think to sell these people short and say they don't have a vested interest in the cat fancy, we've given them a vested interest. They now have national wins. They're scored for points. They have every accommodation available to them that champions, premiers, and kittens do. And I think it's high time that they stepped up and took on that same responsibility that we expect from our breeders and other exhibitors. I think we're missing a big group that could become stronger advocates for preservation breeding of well-founded breeds. And that's all I'll say.
Thank you, Ginger. Jackie, let's wrap this up, please.
Very quickly, to answer some of the questions, they did not go to Breeds and Standards for input because, as we recommended, we want to involve the Household Pet Committee and Breeds and Standards on what this should be. This was a suggestion only with no action expected.
Right.
On the statement that household pet breeders or household pet exhibitors are not breeders, don't understand the genetics, don't understand a breed standard. I believe if you look at the statistics, you will find approximately 40% of our household pet exhibitors also exhibit a pure breed. They do understand that. And one of the things many household pet exhibitors have stated to us is that they don't feel that they have a voice. By allowing them to have a household pet breed or show committee with like a breed standard, it gives them a voice to pick their own representative to speak, like a breed council secretary, to come up with what they want, and then it goes to the board like any other. It is not a carte blanche in this suggestion, but again, this is only a suggestion. With that, the rest of the information from the Preservation Breed Committee you can find on there. We're very proud of the number of videos we've created in conjunction with Melody Boyd. We have 250,000 views at this point, approximately, over 4 social media platforms on the preservation breeding videos, which are made by judges, by exhibitors, by breeders, and by excuse my puppy. So we're very proud of that, and we thank the board for their time.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Jackie and Ginger, thank you. Jackie, thank you for sharing the numbers. I encourage you to present more numbers like that for the February board meeting when we have more time. That was insightful information. Thank you. We are moving on, and I want to thank your committee too, because I know it's just not the two of you, but it's you and your committee.
All right.
Arlene, is Kathy Dunham with us?
Yes, she is.
Okay. Hi, Kathy. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. Take us through your awards committee report. You know the drill. Get to the points and to the motion.
Okay. First point is in option A, there was a piece of data left out of that. I am sorry that I did not catch that in reading the proofing it. It should include the first item that is also listed in option A for the engraving of 10 agility medallion awards that are already have been purchased in the past. So as you can see, the committee has worked diligently with central office to propose some recommendations to reduce the cost of our awards at the national level, to change the options a little bit, and hopefully going forward, it will save money for 2025 awards, but also awards in the future. If you have any questions, I'm certainly willing to entertain those at this time.
Okay, Carol?
Yes, I appreciate the time and effort that went into this, and I know that everyone's trying to save money, but I have to say I'm extremely disappointed in the Breed Awards. A glass medallion is not much more than a holiday decoration. I mean, it's not something that can be put on a shelf or hung on a wall or anything. And with all the recent discussion over the past few years that we should emphasize the breeds more, it just seems that we're shortchanging them by reducing the awards to this level. There must be some other alternative that would be less expensive than what we had in the past, but would still be a little more significant. Thank you.
Carissa?
Whoops. Turn on my video. Just have a question. I know, again, trying to save money, and I definitely am very happy to see that we're looking at saving some money here. But my question to Kathy is, did your committee consider going back to having people pay for their own awards? Which I've heard from some exhibitors who have been around for a while that used to be the norm. I think it would be difficult, but maybe we could come up with a way of coming up with a poll or just asking people if they would agree to paying for their own awards and just basically say, here's the cost. Would you rather do this, or would you rather have a glass medallion? I think some people might be willing to pay up to get a nicer award if they were given the option. So I was just wondering if that was something that could be considered.
Carissa, I'm sorry, Rich.
Kathy, why don't you just jot down all the comments and questions? I'll try and keep track of that too, as well as Rachel. And then once I get through all the board members, we'll let you address them all at one time.
Okay.
I think Kathy Calhoun had her hand up, then Rachel. Kathy, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, my comment was about getting verification if exhibitors had actually paid for their awards in the past and when did that occur? But I think that's going to come up through Kathy Dunham.
Okay. Rachel, did you have a question or comment?
No,
Okay. I
but
thought I
thank
saw
you.
some. Who was it?
I was just saying thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, Kathy Dunham, I don't see any other hands up. Go ahead and, oh, Carol just got her hand up. Go ahead, Carol.
One more thing I just wanted to mention. Many of the people that I know, and I'm sure you also know, work extremely hard for some of these breed awards. And breed awards are very important to serious breeders. So that's another reason why I think that we're kind of shortchanging them by reducing this to a glass medallion. Thank you.
Okay, Carol, thank you. Kathy Dunham, go ahead and address the comments and questions.
Okay, first to address Carissa's question, awards have never been paid for by exhibitors unless you are buying a duplicate award, or in a few of the most recent years, we did have excess glass awards, and you could upgrade from the acrylic award to a glass award. And you paid the difference between the acrylic and glass to upgrade. Those that has since been discontinued because we no longer have glass awards in inventory. So I'm not sure who you were talking with about that, but Aline can certainly weigh in. She's been around CFA a very long time, and we did have that discussion today in the office prior to the meeting. To address Carol's concerns, I do understand the breeder perspective. I am a breeder, as you very well know. And I work just as hard as anybody else for a breed award when I choose to show a cat to that level. But the reality is, you know, all of us have limited space. All of us have limited resources. And I just think it's time that CFA look at this from the perspective of needing to take a different approach. And this is one approach. If the board does not like it, they can certainly vote their conscience, and we will do what we need to accordingly to accommodate that.
Okay, Janet, you are the board liaison for this committee. Do you want to proceed with the motions, or do you want to table them until we get more information?
Kathy, did you feel like we needed to get more information, or do you want to go ahead and vote?
I would like a vote so that we know what direction the committee needs to take, please.
Okay, then I'll make a standing motion on the items in the report.
Okay, so my understanding is, and I just want to get this right, so you got to help me here. If the first motion fails, you're going to go with the second motion, or?
That is
Yes.
correct, Rich. Yeah.
Okay, that's the way I thought, but I would just want to double check. Rachel?
I'd like to second, be a standing second.
Okay, so we have Janet making the standing motion, and we have Rachel making the standing second. So we're going to start with the first motion. Is it on the screen?
Yeah, it's motion A or option A.
Okay. Oh, yep. Okay. Janet, read it just in case people can't see it on their screens that are viewing. Read the first motion.
Okay, approve option A for, wait a minute. Is that what I'm reading?
Well, that's my
Yeah.
understanding. Rachel, is that what we're reading? Approve
Board
option
action
A.
item, the motion, yeah, approve option A for 2025 national awards to include already purchased medallions for agility, a larger sized award for best cat, and smaller sized awards for 2 through 25, glass medallions for breed winners, and no rosettes to be presented.
Okay, Aline, please scroll up now to option A. And I need to point out, and Kathy, you had mentioned this, in option A that's not on the screen includes the 10 agility awards at $10 each for the engraving. Is that correct?
Yes.
Kathy Dunham?
Yes,
That
that is correct. And the total there is correct. It does include the $100. So the total for the awards would be 23,974.50, give or take. I mean, obviously there's a little, might be a little
Okay.
discrepancy there, but not very much.
Okay, and if my math is correct, the reduction from the current 2024 national award cost is approximately $31,237.36,
Yes.
give or take $1 or $2. Okay. Any further discussion on this motion? Okay, I'm going to call the vote because I believe there may be some objections. In favor, raise your hand. Just a reminder, while you're raising your hands, please keep them up until I ask everybody to lower your hand. I have Kathy Calhoun, Howard, Carissa, Janet, John, Vicky, and Russell. Lower your hand. If you're opposed, raise your hand. I have Rachel, Pam, Aki, Daryl, Carol, Marilee, Ann, Polly, Kenny, Dorianne. Lower your hand. And if you're an abstention, raise your hand. No abstentions. Rachel, when you're ready.
That's 7 yes, 10 no, 0 abstentions.
Okay, motion fails. Okay, Janet, read the second motion.
Approve option B only if the motion for option A fails for 2025 national awards to include already purchased medallions for agility, a larger sized award for best cat, and smaller sized awards for 2 through 25, glass medallions for breed winners, and rosettes to be presented.
Okay, thank you. Aline, please scroll up to option B. Okay, total 32,662.50. Kathy Dunham, can you confirm that is correct? Correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Mary Lee?
Yeah, I'm just wanted to say I'm not sure there's an option for this, but I'm not sure that we need rosettes. But I kind of agree with Carol that the glass medallions for breed winners is a bit of a letdown if you've been trying all season for that award. But that's just my input.
Okay, thank you, Mary Lee. Rachel?
That was my thought as well. And so if we don't get this one to pass, I would like to make a motion to that effect afterwards, but we'll see how it goes here.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Any further discussion? Okay, if you're in favor of option B, raise your hand. Daryl, Kathy, Calhoun, Carissa, Janet, Vicky, and Howard. Lower your hand. Chris, okay. If you're opposed, raise your hand. Rachel, Pam, Carol, Kenny, Marilee, Polly, Ann, Russell, John, Dorianne, and Aki. Lower your hand. And if you're an abstention, raise your hand. No abstentions. Rachel, when you're ready.
That's 6 yes, 11 no, 0 abstentions.
Okay, motion fails. Okay, Kathy Dunham, what further comments do you have?
The committee will go back and unless the board directs us differently, we'll assume we're doing option C, which is to continue with the current structure.
Rachel?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to amend option C to eliminate the line item for rosettes, the 8690. But to ratify it otherwise.
Okay, Marilee, are you seconding that motion?
I am.
Okay, thank you. Carol, you had your hand up and then took it down.
Yes, I was going to second the motion myself.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Let's see. Okay. I just want to get a total on there. 51,275 minus 8690. Aline, I have 42,585. Kathy Dunham, I don't know if you are checking my math, but that's what I came up with.
I did not, but it is, I'm sure, very close, if not right on the money.
Okay. Any further discussion on option C? In Ed, we don't need 2/3 on this because this is within the, much like an amended motion, it's already been pre-noticed that we're voting on this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true.
Okay. That was my understanding on how this works. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I'm going to call the vote. If you're in favor, raise your hand. Kathy Calhoun, Daryl, Rachel, Pam, Vicky, Marilee, Kenny, Carol, Polly, Dorianne, Aki, Janet, Ann, Russell, John, and Howard. Please lower your hand. If you're opposed, raise your hand. Carissa, lower your hand. And if you're an abstention, raise your hand. No abstentions. Rachel, when you're ready.
That's 16 yes, 1 no, 0 abstentions.
Okay, that motion passes. Okay, Kathy Dunham,
Yes,
do you have anything further?
not for this report.
All right, hang on. Does anybody have any further questions or comments for Kathy Dunham? Okay, Kathy, I see no questions or comments, so I thank you and your committee for all your work on this, and we look forward to hearing from you in February.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Kathy, you're going to continue with entry clerk program now. Kathy
Correct.
Dunham. Okay.
This is just an update. First of all, the committee thanks you for formalizing us at the October board meeting. Prior to, as you see in the report, we did do some work with the ID committee and working with some new entry clerks. So it was just nice to be formalized. The rest of it is just information for the board to know where we are headed. The only addition to this is I had written in the report that I would be having a Zoom meeting with the 4 new entry clerks in China. That has been delayed because over Thanksgiving I was called away on a personal matter. But that Zoom meeting will be scheduled here probably next week, once we can determine a date and time that works for everybody. Other than that, there's no additional information for the report.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Kathy? Okay, Kathy, thank you very much.
Mhm.
All right. Daryl, you have International Division.
Yes, thank you. I'll be sort of brief here. We do have 3 action items in here. I want everyone to please note and read about the updates for the ACDF in Hong Kong. So they've updated their stuff a little bit there. We have a show coming up in Taiwan this weekend. They have 93 entries. So that's pretty good. I just got back from Vietnam. Pam and I judged there. We had about 100 entries. But the Central Breed Club wants to do an in conjunction show with WCF March of 2025. So that's our first action item.
Okay, Daryl, are you going to be a standing on all 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Kenny, are you a standing second on all 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Discussion. Kenny, do you have a comment? Okay, any objections to the first action item? Okay, seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Daryl, go ahead and do the second one.
Yeah, we have 2 more shows coming up in Taiwan. They have a small hall. They want to do split rings, 3 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. So we can take them one at a time. So we can go with the Taiwan International Cat Club first.
Okay, let's do them one at a time.
Okay.
Is there any discussion? Any objections? Okay, lower your hand. Lower your hand.
I have to abstain.
Okay, I'll call the vote. Lower your hand, John. All those in favor, raise your hand. Howard, Daryl, Carissa, Russell, Carol, Kenny, Janet, Dorianne, Pam, Rachel, Aki, Polly, Vicky, Ann, Marilee, and Kathy. Lower your hand. If you're an abstention, raise your hand. John,
Yeah,
lower your hand.
so-
And if you're an objection, raise your hand. No objections. Rachel, when you're ready.
Thank you. That's 16 yes, 0 no, 1 abstention.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, so the next motion is the same thing on February the 9th for Pacific Cats Meow.
Okay. Discussion? Any objections? Okay, seeing no objections, motion passes unanimously. Okay, Daryl.
Just one closing comment. I put this report together while I was in Vietnam, and I really had problems with the internet, and I apologize to Rachel. I don't know how many times I sent this report to her, but I guess it came through 4 or 5 times. But I did want to include a couple of weeks ago in India, Jan and Adila Roos had worked with Bobby Wanaki on their education seminar for Indian breeders and exhibitors, and it was very successful. So hopefully we'll get a report in for February. Maybe have some pictures of that. So I thank you very much, everyone, for supporting the motions.
Does anybody have any questions for Daryl? Okay, Daryl, thank you very much to you and your committee. Eileen?
She's
did
here.
She is
She's
here?
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna go on to the Household Pet Advisory Committee. Jenny, hello and welcome to the meeting.
Hello, good evening, President Maston.
Jenny,
And
I don't know if you were in the audience when I made the announcement. Want you to just get to the point. The board has read your report. If you have any highlights you want to point out here, now's the time to do it. Then I'll turn it over to the board to ask you questions or share comments. And then I'll call on you last to address all of them at one time.
yes, sir.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Okay. Thank you to the board for tabling the multiple mutation discussion and bringing it back to the Household Pet Committee for feedback, as we represent a class who would be negatively impacted by the listed proposal. And just for clarification, since I know it came up, the Household Pet Committee is composed of household pet exhibitors from across regions 1 through 7. I asked regional directors a few years ago for names and input. I didn't get an answer from the Japanese regional director at the time, and Pam Delabar said that household pets are not typically allowed entry by clubs in Europe for show. So there's not many household pets in Europe. But you can see the committee members listed in my report. So just as the breed council secretaries are the torchbearers for their respective breeds, I speak for a class that's often a minority voice in CFA. Since I am a Turkish Angora breeder, I do understand and have listened to multiple perspectives. Once again, a large majority of my committee is against this proposal. The household pet exhibitor should get a say in what happens in their class at shows, just as breed councils can change their breed standards. I implore that the board hears our voices tonight. We are harder workers than some are giving us credit for. I also want to remind the board that the proposal was from the floor at the end of a long day and was not pre-noticed. Extreme photos were given for full effect and passed out, and they're still being reshared, but the board does not have to pass this proposal, and the Household Pet Committee is asking that it not be passed as written, or that the board put together a committee which has members from other committees for more work, like a joint task force. We will need verified reports of these cats instead of just stories and hearsay. So I also heard the Preservation Committee mention some of my points. We don't understand why some mutations are included and some aren't. Brachycephalic cats have structural mutations involving the skull. And Pam Delabar, in the last meeting, I was reading the minutes, mentioned that curled back ears don't have any research supporting claims of negative health effects. So coat mutations do not hurt the health and welfare of cats. I agree with Jackie Bennett that we really do need to do more research. So we also have these household pet exhibitors who have been showing for multiple years supporting CFA, who do wonderful things for their region. And are their cats going to be grandfathered in? So they're not breeders. Some of them acquired their cats, most of them acquired their cats through rescues, and they're not promoting backyard breeders. So once again, I do like the idea from the Preservation Committee as well. And this proposal, it just needs more work. It needs verified numbers. And we're putting an extra burden on our judges, on our entry clerks, on our show managers. Judges don't know if, these cats had tail surgeries or if they had a hematoma and it caused the ears to fold over. I just think we're putting a lot of extra work on people where we really need to come together and think this thing through. Like I said, like a committee or a think tank. But I just think if this proposal happened to pass it, we're going down a very slippery slope with a lot of unintended consequences. For board actions, I'm going to yield to Howard for his motion, if I'm allowed to do that. And thank you for your time.
Okay, stay with us because you now have to address the comments and questions. Pam is going to address the comment that you made on her notes. I don't want you to respond until everybody has spoken because I don't want to go back and forth, okay? Pam?
I don't think that, Jenny, I'm sorry. I don't think that you did the correct interpretation of what I said. Yes, the American curl had been intensively studied, and there were no health defects found with the American curl ears. There's no gene associated with any problems. The other thing that I think you misquoted me on is not that our clubs don't allow household pets, is that we just don't get them. Europe is very breed oriented. Though I am still doing rescue and brought 3 cats back from Crete in September, and have shown household pets throughout my career with CFA. I am going to make most of my comments when we get to the show rule discussion, because that's where I think that this is really targeted. I thank you for your input. Personally, I do not agree with it because these cats of these mutations are killing the cat fancy in Europe. And we're seeing it country by country by country.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Rachel?
Here we go. Yeah, I have multiple comments to make when we get to the show rules portion, piggybacked on Pam's, that it's CFA that will be negatively impacted if we don't do something dramatic and serious. But I raised my hand to address the action items. These aren't really motions, it's just mostly a continuation of the report. I don't know what we're voting on here. If there is a motion, could it be reworded so that we can understand what it is? For instance, is there something they want us to ratify here? I just don't really understand what the motion or action item is. Thank you.
Okay, Carissa, Marilee, Vicky, I know you have your hand up, but since Rachel brought this point to order, keep your hands up. You don't have to take them down. Howard, I'm going to ask you, are you presenting any of these as motions? And if you are, I'm then going to turn it over to Ed. Okay? Go ahead, Howard.
Well, yes, I wanted to make the following changes to motions. Do you want to hear it or you want to wait?
Okay, let's start with the first action item. So before you make your change, I want to hear what Ed has to say, because this motion is in his show rules report. So Ed, on the first motion, or the first action item, what is your position on this legally?
The motion is not on the table.
It's not on the table.
You have nothing to vote on.
Okay,
You can't vote against a motion that doesn't exist yet.
okay. Howard, are you making a motion to the first action item?
The majority of the committee would like the board not to pass the changes to the show rules 2.23 F, G, and H to prohibit entries of cats with double mutation in the household pet class. I would withdraw this motion because it's written wrong. Number 2, we would like to have the data collection and verified by judges that these type of cats even are being shown, especially in the United States. This needs to be included in motion 3. 3, with many questions, potential unintended consequences, we would like the board to consider forming committee with members of other committees such as legislative, breeds and standards, judging program, rules, and this household pet committee. This proposal still needs work and verified research before it should be voted on. I would rewrite as follows. Motion to table rule 2.23 F, G, and H until a committee can be formed to collect, verify all data related to the topic of multiple mutations and how they affect the business of CFA. That's it.
Okay, so what is the motion that you're presenting right now to the board?
Well, withdraw the first one. The second one, or written is wrong, in my opinion. The second one, this needs to be included in 3, 2, and 3. Like to have the data collection verified by judges that these cats are being shown, especially in the United States. This needs to be included in 3, which would be with the questions and potential unintended consequences. We would like the board to consider forming a committee with members of other committees such as legislation, breeds and standards, judging program, rules, and the household pet committee. So the motion to table rule 2.23 F, G, and H until committee can be formed. So I guess motion to could go on with the research and verification. And then put that in the motion.
Okay,
Rewrite it as follows, yeah.
Rich, I have a point of order.
yeah, that's why I was calling on Ed.
Well, that's what.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a motion on the table that you can table. If you want to bring that motion during the Shore Rules Committee report, that can be done then, but it can't be done now.
Well, we could do it then.
Yeah, that's why I called on Ed right from the beginning, as soon as Rachel brought this up, because the way these are presented, and Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, they're almost suggestions / recommendations, maybe timing issues as well. So we're just gonna have issues trying to present motions during this, unless Ed, you say otherwise.
No, I mean, I think it's just the wrong time and place to raise these things.
Okay, all right, then we're past that. Now I'm gonna go back to calling on Carissa, Marilee, then Vicky, because you had your hands up. Carissa?
I have some very specific questions for the Household Pet Committee, so you might want to write them down because they're kind of deep questions. The first question is, how would you detect and stop people from purposely breeding multiple mutation cats and using the household pet class to market them to CFA spectators? Or is that even something the Household Pet Committee has considered? And I know you're going to have to write them down and respond to them. The second question is, has the committee really put any thoughts into what cats they would not want to see in the household pet class? Is that even come up? And my third question is, there have been contradictory statements. Either there are several people out there showing stacked mutation cats who would be negatively affected by the proposed show rule that's going to come up later, or there are no cats that are actually being shown and there's no evidence of these stacked mutation cats. Both statements have been made within the last 10 minutes. So my question is, how many exhibitors are actually showing these stacked mutation cats, I will say within the United States, that would be affected by the proposed change? Do you actually have a number of these exhibitors and cats? Because if we're talking about, I mean, we need to know how many when we're making a decision about this. It's implied that it's going to have a massive effect to the household pet class, but it's also implied that these cats don't actually exist and we have no proof of that. So I have a lot of concerns with how the information is being presented to the board. Basically, I feel like kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth. Either the cats exist or they don't. So those are my questions.
Okay. Marilee, you had your hand up next and took it down.
Yes, I am kind of in agreement with Pam Delabar on this one. Why are we only concerned about stacked mutations in household pets in the United States? We are seeing these all over the world, in Europe, in Malaysia, all over. I've seen them myself on the show bench. So I know that Pam and I talk a lot to people involved in genetics, and Leslie Lyons, and welfare of cats and cat breeds, trying to save cat breeds that are in danger. And I think we can't just say, well, it may affect 1 or 2 people in the United States. We have to think of this as a whole for the cat fancy and our cat breeds. It's really harming all of us.
Okay, thank you, Marilee. Vicky?
Yes, so my question is concerning the line that says the majority of the committee. How was this determined? I've heard that there was a Zoom call, but people were excluded from it that wanted to participate. I I'm hearing things from people that are on the household pet committee that are against this, that feel as though they were excluded from making decisions and input on it. So my question is, was there any, how many people on this committee voted in each direction on this to present this to the board, and how was this done?
Okay, thank you, Vicky. Howard?
Yes. I don't know what's going on in Europe and all over the country, but if they're breeding these things, then it should be under breeders. Number one, and where's the statistical proof? Where's the numbers? Where are the numbers at? How much and where is it verified? I don't see anything that it's being verified or how many numbers of the actual cats are going on. And if it's breeders, well, then breeders it should be penalized for breeders doing this. But I was all over the country last year. I never saw a double mutation. And if you've seen a double mutation in a show that you were at, why didn't you get record or verification of that, take pictures of it, or do something, especially if you're a regional director? But that's my thoughts on it. I think it's a problem looking for a solution here in the United States. Now, it may be a problem in Europe. Well, if it's somebody's breeding them, let's take it up with the breeders and make it penalized for that. But just to say, find a household pet, oh, we're going to throw you out the show because you ended up having a cat that we don't consider normal or in the right vein in the United States when you didn't breed it, that causes complications. I understand the problems that people would be having with a double mutation that was detrimental to the cats. But I just think we need to verify that. I think there's more data that needs to be proven exactly how many cats we have, exactly where are we finding them, what locations, and are they being bred and being shown, or are they just showing up at shows? But if it's a big problem in Europe or in Asia, then let's deal with it there or any place that's actually breeding.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Kathy?
Yeah, I'm agree with Howard. I think that we don't have the data. There was some photos and whatnot shown that were pretty disturbing. But in my opinion, I don't think we're at the point where we need to make a decision that is pivotal to this organization. I think we need to have a committee or a task force or something to really dig deep on the numbers, maybe other solutions, maybe when we find that these double stack mutations are occurring and where they're occurring, what can we do about it in the areas that they are. I judge frequently. I judge in other countries. I have yet to see this on the table in front of me. Once we do something like this, it's very difficult to go back. So I'm not for or against this per se. I just don't think we are ready to make this decision with the information that we have.
Thank you, Kathy. Pam?
Two of 51 household pets at the international show were double mutations. I judged them. I did not final them. I want to remind my fellow regional directors that Region 9 is responsible for more registrations than any other single region. It's not something for the future. This is already in our past. We are having cats. We are having cat fancy negatively affected. And I'm talking about all cat fancies, all organizations in Europe. I have judged double mutations in Indonesia. So we know they're in Southeast Asia. We know that they're being bred. This is an overall animal welfare consideration. We don't have that many on the show bench. This is an overall stance, an overall policy or rule that CFA needs to take. I cannot emphasize the animal welfare portion of this too much. And for people say, oh, I have never heard of this before. My God, how many times do I have to bring it up at meetings? I have brought it up at board meetings. I brought it up at the annual meeting. There is even now in the Ukraine an organization that takes all of these mutations and they are giving out certificates, so pedigrees on these cats. This is starting to kill us. If we allow something in our show hall, then we are saying this is okay, people. And yes, by all means, you know, we will accept this and we will promote this. We do not allow declawed cats. We don't need to stand up at our judging tables and say, this is why we don't allow declawed cats. We don't allow cats in household pets that cannot stand or sit, because we've had neurologically challenged cats that were just flopping around enough to bring tears to Daryl Newkirk's eyes. This is an animal welfare stance. And as I said, it's killing us country by country in Europe. And one of these days, Kathy, you're promoting registrations, and I'm out there pushing, bringing in new people from other organizations to register with us. We need to keep the level of the standards that we have and carry forth from there. That's the only way that we're going to be able to fight back on a lot of this.
Okay, thank you, Pam. I just want to remind the board members that some of the comments probably might be best served during the show rule. And if you have specific questions for Jenny to address from the Household Pet Committee, because as I recall back in October, a board member made the request to table this and let's get some feedback from the Household Pet Committee. I don't remember who it was. I think I remember, but I'm not 100% sure. So, Kathy, you're going to be the last person to speak on this. There's two people ahead of you, and then I'm going to give it to Jenny to address all the questions. And then Jenny, if you have any additional comments separate from this, from your committee, and if any board members have any questions about your committee on other projects, I'll open it up then. But I want to wrap this section up. Kenny, go ahead. You're on mute, Kenny.
I'd see Jenny finish up and let's get to the crux of the matter. Everybody has their own personal opinion on this, but although this idea has merit, we need a lot more clarification and specific in specific areas that's going to allow us to make the right decision. You're going to have huge ramifications regardless of what you do. Right now, Pam said that she judged 55 household pets. I did it the year before last, and I think I did more than that, and I didn't see any mutation problems. I'm done.
Thank you, Kenny. Howard?
I'm not saying that they don't exist anywhere, but I think we need to have statistical proof. How many were there? What kind of mutations were there? Were they being shown by breeders, or were they just happened to be there? We have to look at it seriously, but we have to get some statistics before, and more than just anecdotal evidence.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Kathy, you're the last person to speak on this, then Jenny.
Okay, I just want a little bit of clarification and then I'll make it short on what my position may be. Pam, you mentioned that Kathy, that you're trying to increase registrations. We're all trying to increase registrations. That's a global effort, not Kathy's, everyone. In my opinion, we need to do more work on this. This is very important. This is very important for cats. It's very important for the organization. We need to get it right, but not necessarily get it hurried. Let's get it right before we vote this into either a policy or a show rule. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jenny, you're going to address the questions. Board, I'm going to ask you not to ask any more questions after Jenny answers the questions because I want to move on from this. Go ahead, Jenny, address the questions.
I will try my best, President Maston. I did want to start off by saying that no good decision has ever come about because of fear. So let's not rush this decision because we're fearful of this and you know, what could happen. I know Carissa sent me some of her questions. And how would you detect and stop people from purposefully breeding multiple mutation cats and using the household pet class to market them to CFA spectators? I haven't seen this being done. I've only heard of accounts, and that's why Howard's asking for us to have verified record of this. It's just a lot of stories. The household pet exhibitor that I know that has shown what we would consider a multiple structural mutation, it's not like they're promoting it. They're not the breeder. So they're not breeding them. They're usually getting them from rescues, or yes, they might buy them from a breeder, but maybe they don't know better. So why not let them in the show hall and educate them? I think the education should be done in the show hall, not close the doors to the classroom and not let them in. How many exhibitors are actually showing these stack mutations? So that's what we kind of want numbers on. Like, there is one that was a national winner from last year that we know about, who's been exhibiting for a couple years loyally, who has friends that exhibit regular rescues that travel with her, who has spent a lot of money and promotes CFA and is not promoting the breed that her cat is recognized in 2 other organizations with. So yeah, there's a few out there, but those people do great things for our organization. Let's see. And the household pet committee was starting to talk about a standard, but this proposal kind of had to stop that discussion because the board wanted a report on this. So yes, we did start discussing a proposal. Vicki Jansen was asking for numbers. And if you look at the beginning of my report, I give you the numbers of how many people are on the committee. 2, I got no responses from, but I reached out in multiple ways to the committee. I reached out on a private Facebook group. I reached out over email. I reached out over Messenger. People talked to me on the phone. Some people didn't want to respond to some people because some people have stronger voices than others, and some people wanted their voices heard, so they told it to me. But the actual numbers are in that report. Let's see. And I do want to thank Howard and Kathy Calhoun for asking for this more information, because I still believe that we need a joint task force before we start making such a large decision that's going to affect one of our classes that has a lot of new exhibitors in it. That can be, if you look like me, could eventually become a breeder and show in the other classes and be what CFA should be. So I just think the household pet class should be inclusive. We shouldn't be exclusive. And we'll go back to working on a household pet standard. We have no problem with that. We were starting to discuss it, like I said, and hopefully I've answered most of the questions.
Okay, thank you, Jenny, for doing as the board had asked you to do. Thank you to the board for presenting your questions to Jenny. Does any board member have any questions for Jenny outside of this last topic we spoke about? Jenny, do you have any other comments that the Household Pet Committee is working on or you'd like to share with the board at this time?
We will go back to working on a standard, and we have been also discussing like breaking out classes, whether that be specialty, something that I spoke to the board about last February, I believe. But that's what we're also working on. And clearly we're going to have to work more on a standard if that is what, the suggestion is, but we had already been discussing it.
Okay. Then thank you for attending, and we look forward to hearing more from you in February. And thank you to your committee. Okay, we're going to move on to show rules. That is Ed and Carol. Carol, question directed to you. Are you a standing motion on all of the motions?
Yes, I will be a standing motion.
Okay. Do I have Rachel? Are you a standing second on all the motions?
I would like to be a standing second.
Thank you. Okay, Ed, I am turning it over to you.
Okay, I was gonna make a suggestion that you only do a standing motion on action items 1 through 7. Because 8 through 11, I included them because they are currently existing in the addendum, but no board members asked for them to be brought back and extended for next year. So you may not even want to consider them and vote on them, but they're now out there. So let's continue the discussion about amending show rule 22.23 F, G, and H to prohibit entry of cats with double mutations in household pet and exhibition only classes and in agility competition. What's coming back is the motion that was tabled.
Okay. All right, Pam.
I was on my way to the airport when this came up towards the end of the board meeting in October. So I didn't get to express my opinion on it. And I think you all pretty much know my opinion. I just want to add one other thing. People are being charged with felonies for breeding these cats or having these cats. I mean, ownership is going to be prohibited. But when you have a person that is held for a felony charge, this is very serious. In 1991, I started the animal welfare committee that we now have a very large expanded program. I have judged these cats. I am surprised that people who have judged in Southeast Asia have not handled these cats in either pet fairs or CFA club sponsored pet fairs or in the household pet classes. It's not a huge number, but it is a very visible amount of cats. These cats are very visible. As I said, if we allow it in the show hall, then we are, if not verbally supporting it, tacitly supporting these cats is being bred and shown as household pets. I have to go with the 258 clubs that voted in favor of this, and I will be supporting these.
Rachel?
Thank you. I did want to talk about the statement that the Household Pet Committee made that their group would be negatively impacted by this rule. This is true in a very small sense. There is a small number of these cats that are being shown, some of which have gotten national wins. And a greater threat is CFA itself to be negatively impacted. As a world leader in the cat fancy, CFA needs to take a stance, a very strong stance on what we consider healthy for the welfare and benefit of all cats. To see the pictures that were shown at the annual, which yes, were very striking, but they were necessary for people to understand exactly where this is legitimately going. And these kittens are being shown in our show halls. It was important for everyone to understand that all levels of showing stack mutations are dangerous to our hobby. They threaten our hobby and CFA's existence. And that's the way that I feel about this generally. I do have a problem with the sentence in the rationale, and I believe this is part of the reason that this was, I want to give a summary on the history of this proposal. The board unanimously ratified it. Later on in the meeting, I believe it was the next day, it was brought back up for reconsideration and it was voted down. It was brought back up again for reconsideration, and at that time it passed by 1 or 2 votes. And what it was brought up on the basis of the first sentence, sorry, in the rationale, the first sentence of the second paragraph, because allegedly a judge embarrassed a household pet exhibitor by invoking this rule before it had even been passed. We have no proof that that happened. I don't doubt the regional director that brought it up. I don't know who brought it up to that person, but this sentence shouldn't be in here. It tells what should happen if one of these cats is shown in a show. And a rationale isn't an actionable item. It's just a further explanation. So this is going to be buried in here. So it's of no consequence as it is, in my opinion. And I disagree with the way that this should be handled. This is a judging program issue, and if this rule should pass, then it's the judging program that needs to educate our judges on how to handle this situation. They do a great job of it when other situations like this come up. But I think that CFA would be negatively impacted. The cat fancy will be negatively impacted. We're leaving a door wide open for people that want to kill our hobby and make all of our pedigreed breeds extinct if we don't pass this. Thank you.
Janet?
Yeah, so I concur that we need a committee and a lot further evaluation on this whole issue. It seems from reading all the letters and listening to Pam that the crux of the matter is that the animal rights activists are coming for us and that we feel that this puts us out ahead of it. I agree. This is a huge risk to CFA going forward, and it needs some diligent study and discussion to strategize a real plan to fight back. As capitulation and a preemptive strike against our own association should not be the answer. Second, this proposal does nothing to actually address the problem that is claimed exists. You will never stop people from breeding them, but we can ban CFA breeders from breeding them, and we can withhold services or outright ban them from our shows if they're found to be in violation. This makes more sense to me than banning household pets whom are spayed and neutered, and 99% don't even know the parentage or understand the genetics of their cats. It's our entry-level class. While TICA and ACFA embrace the Highlander as a new breed, we're going to be dequeuing them from our household pet class, which is also going to be further kicking to the curb a longtime exhibitor. And I think businesses that treat their customers with this kind of disdain tend to not stay in business. Just saying. It's random and arbitrary. We have all kinds of mutations in our registry, and many of them have been mentioned, and many of them are on their radar, and many of them they're coming for. Yet only certain ones here are a problem. The rule says double mutations. Why are coat mutations problematic? Long hair is a coat mutation, but it's excluded. Brachiocephaly is a structural mutation and impacts many of our breeds. These cats exist in our breeding class of cats. These are our breeding cats. Household pets are not breeding cats. Should we then issue a preemptive strike now because they're coming for us? I just think we need to really take a step back here and do some due diligence on this whole huge issue. And lastly, there will be a cost to this at a time in which we don't need more expenses, a monetary cost and an untold exhibitor cost. So before we go passing something, I think we need to know what that is. That's it. Thank you.
Vicky?
Yes, th- I've talked to a lot of people about this. A lot of people have reached out to me on it. And an alternative is that, you know, which we really don't want to see, because people really see this in the show halls, is some of the clubs will just quit having household pet class. You know, that's really not where we want to go with it. There's a handful of people out there that, you know, from what I understand, are breeding these, and we don't want this. I have 50 future veterinarians coming to a cat show. I don't want them seeing this kind of thing. That this doesn't represent what we want. It's no.
Okay. Thank you, Vicky. Daryl?
So I am conflicted on this. I can understand the household pet committee's stance on it. I'm not sure that we have proof that just because you have a stack mutation that it's bad on the health. But you know, we have a process where we do amendments to our bylaws and amend our show rules. And this was overwhelmingly supported. And I know it was from the floor and it's only advisory to the board, but I have to support what the delegation wants. So I may not like it, but I'm going to support the delegates.
Marilee?
I'm going to be with Pam and Rachel here, and with Daryl, that our delegates overwhelmingly, not even close, overwhelmingly supported this. We have people who are after our pedigree cats with brachycephaly, with folded ears, whatever it may be. We're having a hard enough time trying to defend those, much less ones that are being bred purposely with multiple mutations. I know for a fact there are cats with multiple mutations that are bred on purpose, and they have been put into household pet class. The Scottish kilt being one, the folded ear munchkin, which, you know, I agree with Leslie Lyons, is probably one of the worst things you could mix together on the planet. So I'm gonna have to be in support of this.
Kenny?
Yeah. I'm not comfortable with the wording of the and the way it's going to be implemented. But it says word etc, etc. That's really a wide open interpretation. So, I mean, there's a lot of mutations that we all are aware of that aren't included in this show rule. So the interpretation and the way this thing is written, to me, needs a lot of work. I'd also, would like, gonna need guidance from the judging program. So if I get a polydactyl cat that looks like with a Cornish Rex coat that looks perfectly healthy, am I automatically gonna have to disqualify that cat? I haven't seen one in my 40 years of judging, but I'm just throwing out an example. And it will have ramifications as far as CFA's bottom line. We understand what we're talking about this rule. But a newer household pet person is going to hear one thing: CFA doesn't like household pets. So I would be very careful. I like the idea of putting together a committee, getting input once again from our delegation. Let's get it as a regular amendment on the floor of the annual instead of, and in the meantime, we can study it. I just don't want to go too fast and be sorry for it. That's my main concern.
Okay, more questions? I have a couple questions. Pam, do you know if the other 8 associations affiliated with the World Cat Congress, have they adopted this as a show rule?
I think if you read what Rachel put forth with our strategic, you'll see that some have allowed munchkins, but the elves and the dwelfs and some of the dominant blue-eyed breeds that do have health problems are basically not within WCC. So I mean, I know that like WCF has Bambinos, and that's a double stack. And that's one of the problems that we're having, in some of our areas. And I do want to bring forth one thing, as Vicki Jensen said, that she had a number of veterinarian students coming to shows, that the problems we're having in Europe are often brought forth by veterinarians. So we really need to focus on this, but it's the major WCC organizations, by and large, do not have these mutations as part of their breeds, at least the double mutations, with the exception of like WCF. But if you look in the rather extensive list of who accepts what breeds, and some of which I need to follow up on to find out what they are, by and large, no, we're not looking at organizations that allow the double mutations.
Okay, thank you for addressing that. Rachel, do you have further information on my question to Pam?
Well, I'm just confirming that Tika doesn't allow double mutations anymore. The Highlander was grandfathered in because they were already pretty far down the path to acceptance. So I think the trend is generally away from the stacking mutations worldwide.
Okay, and Rachel, did you have another comment to make?
No, I've
Okay.
said plenty. Thank you.
Okay, Marilee, do you have additional information to my question to Pam?
Yeah, I was just looking at WCF accepted breeds, and I don't see the Bambino. A couple weeks ago, I had this discussion with WCF judges and show organizers, and they said this is whether A, they're not accepting stacked mutations as breeds, and then B, whether or not they're allowed in the household pet class is up to the individual club, and many clubs are just not accepting them to be shown. So they
Okay.
work very different than we do.
Okay, thank you for that information. My next question is to Russell and then possibly other members on the judging program. Russell, is the judging program ready to write policies, procedures, outlines to the judges should this show rule get passed?
As of now, I don't think so. I mean, we're not genetics. We're not a genetic. I think if it does pass, then we're going to have to look into it and write what we need to do. But as far as judging these cats, we're not trained in genetics.
Okay,
I mean,
thank you. Pam, do you have additional information on my question specific to what I asked Russell?
No, I'm sorry. I was going to correct what I stated about WCF. I just double checked. It was another club within the area where WCF was having activity, but it's an independent organization. So I apologize to my friends at WCF.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Pam. Mary Lee? Specific to my question that I gave to Russell, can you comment on?
Yes. At our last JPC meeting, this was discussed specifically, and Rachel made the point, and we discussed it, that we as judges are trained in specific disqualifications for many breeds, some of which are somewhat genetic related, whether it be a rye jaw or a locket or whatever the case may be, a kinked tail, these types of things. This would be as two structural mutations. I mean, a kinked tail is a structural mutation. So Rachel had made the point, and I'm sure she can add anything if she feels like she needs to at this point, that we've been trained to do that. We could be trained to do to be able to identify structural mutations that are stacked as well.
Okay, thank you, Mary Lee. Rachel?
Thank you. I did just want to mention that the Judging Program Committee discussed this at our recent teleconference. After quite a bit of discussion, it was basically summed up that the Judging Program Committee supports the delegate motion. And we want CFA to consider that this is for the benefit of the health and welfare of all cats, and for CFA to make a stand in that regard.
Okay. Kenny?
Yeah, I'll try to make this quick. How many judges on this panel have disqualified or moved a cat from a color class? I'll give you an example. Red tabby and white entered in the show as a red tabby. That particular cat is needs to be a red and white. They tell me that I'm a crazy judge. All right, I withhold on it because of color. It goes into the next ring as a red and white. And it finally gets its last 10 points it needed as grand champion. What happens if we have two judges that have judged a double mutation cat? And then the third judge, they recognize this problem. How is that going to look to CFA? And what is the solution in that point? And the last thing I want to say is, how do you recognize ETC? This rule is not well written. I think we need to table it and get these committees going.
Okay, thank you, Kenny. Vicky?
Just to answer Kenny's comment, I would move to delete ETC by interlineation. We can just line that ETC out, and then we don't have to worry about that. The other comment, same thing happens with cats that are missing a testicle. I've seen, I've clerked for judges that, caught a missing testicle, and they were the only ones in the show hall that, caught it. Some catch it, some don't. I mean, this kind of thing just happens in our shows.
Okay, Ed?
2 points. One, I have received input from Vicky for the mechanics of how such a cat would be recorded in the judge's book. We'll bring that forward in February if this passes. Secondly, to Vicky's point, if you take out the ETC in these show rules, that means that the list that is there, hairlessness, waviness, and wiring is exhaustive. So if there's another code mutation that hasn't been listed here, but is something that you're not in favor of, it's not going to be covered.
Okay, any further comments? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. If you are in favor, raise your hand.
In favor of this passing, is that what you mean?
Yes, that is the motion on the table. Rachel, Marilee, Carol, Holly, Carissa, Vicky, Daryl, Aki, Dorianne, Pam. Lower your hand. If you're opposed, raise your hand. Howard, John, Kenny, Janet, Ann, and Russell. Lower your hand. And if you're an abstention, raise your hand. No abstentions. Rachel, when you're ready.
I'm sorry, I didn't get a vote from Kathy Calhoun.
I don't see Kathy on the call anymore.
Oh, okay. So that's 10 yes, 6 no, 0 abstentions, 1 did not vote.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, Ed.
Okay, number 2 is amend show rule 4.03A to extend the prohibition against scheduling a show in a region on the same weekend as a regional show held in conjunction with the region's annual award ceremony to the international division. This request came out of the October board meeting.
Okay. Pam.
Just a question. The ID is a very large division. So does this mean if there is a show held or a regional, I mean, a ID award show in Malaysia per se, does this mean there could not be a show in Brazil?
That is the way it is written. That was what was requested. I would let Daryl speak to the merits of that.
Daryl.
Yes, Pam, it would prohibit it.
Okay, any further, Daryl, do you have further comments?
No.
Okay, any further discussion? Any objections to this motion? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Ed, number 3.
Number 3 is a motion to amend show rule 28.02A to clarify how the unofficial official counts are determined and to reduce to 70% of the percentage of rings that a cat must be shown in to be considered present in China.
Okay, Daryl, you got any comments on this?
Kathy sent this to me. I reviewed it. I forwarded it on to the International Division Committee, and it was 100% agreement to support this.
Oh, great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Okay, Ed, number 4.
Okay, now we're moving into the addenda and the requests to have certain addenda extended for the 2025-2026 show season. First request is to extend the allowance of up to 50% guest judges in Region 9 and the International Division for the 2025-2026 show season.
Okay, Kathy?
Just for the record, I've been sitting out as a unpromoted panelist. So Eileen just found me and brought me in. How I get flipped out, I don't know, but I am here.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Do you want to record my votes on anything?
Ed, how do we handle that?
Honestly, I'm not sure because it's a very unusual circumstance.
All right, so why don't we do this? We already have a motion on the floor, because you presented it. Let's get through this one and then let's go back and get any missing, motions or any missing votes, that we have on Kathy. I think it's the first three we did in show rules, and I think that's what it is. It's the first three in show rules.
Correct.
Okay, so let's get through this one, and then we'll come back and get your votes, Kathy, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, Daryl?
I think you need the board's approval to allow somebody else to vote that wasn't present, that is now present, just to make it clean.
Okay, so we need somebody to make a motion to accept Kathy's votes. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, we will do it that way, if that's the correct way, Ed.
Yeah, I think if you want to add her vote, that would probably be the safest way to do it.
Okay, so let's not talk about that anymore. Let's get back to this one, and then we'll come back to that one, okay? Because I don't want you guys calling point of order on me. It's already been done once tonight. We'll limit it to hopefully one. Probably not, but we'll shoot for it. Okay, is there any further discussion on, I believe we're on number 4. Number 4. Any objections to number 4? Okay, seeing no objections, motion passes unanimously. Okay, now let's go back to the 3 motions that Kathy was sitting out in the audience and could not participate. I need a motion. Daryl?
I'll make the motion that the board consider Kathy's votes because she was kicked out of the meeting.
Thank you, Daryl. Howard, are you
second it.
seconding?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objection, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, Kathy, we're gonna go to the first show rule. How did you vote?
Can we bring it back on the screen?
Eileen, can you scroll up?
It's the one.
2 point. Yep, this is the one.
Okay. So on, on the first one,
Yes.
I'm a no.
Okay, thank you. Rachel, now that we have Kathy's vote, will you reread the results?
That's 10 yes, 7 no, 0 abstentions.
Okay, that motion passes. Okay, on the second show rule motion,
Yes.
okay, you are a yes. And that is still unanimous vote. Thank you. And on the third motion,
Yes.
okay, thank you. And that is also a unanimous support.
Thank you for allowing me to have my votes counted.
Oh, Kathy, you're welcome, and sorry you got kicked out. I hope it's something I didn't do on my end. I don't think it is, because I don't have control over the board. Okay, Ed, on to number 5.
Number 5, extends the waiver of show rule 2.37 for the 2025-2026 season, and that waiver is provides in a Region 9 cancel shows during the 2025-2026 show season do not count against a club's traditional date.
Okay, Pam, do you want to comment on this shortly? I mean, it's pretty, we understand it, but I'll give you an opportunity to comment if you
Yeah,
want.
I mean, as long as we still have war and then Europe being hit with some horrible disasters, it is affecting the show traditional dates. So I would ask for this to be extended.
Okay, thank you for sharing that comment. Any discussion? Any objections? Okay, seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Number 6.
Number 6 extends the show license late fee exception for regions 8 and 9 and portions of the international division for the 2025-2026 show season.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Number 7.
Number 7 extends the reduction of brand point requirements for cats in the international division, Ukraine and Russia west of the Ural Mountains for the 2025-2026 show season. I will note that I got a comment after I sent the report in that China seems to be rebounding quite well, and it was suggested that they might be able to go back to the 200 points for Grand Champion and 75 points for Grand Premier.
Okay, I'm going to call on Carissa first, and then I'm going to ask Daryl to comment on that. Carissa?
I just had a couple of comments. I'm not sure why we can't increase in some areas of the international division, because certainly they are having quite large shows, especially in championship and premiership. Also, I was curious if Pam knows the answer to this, or Kathy Dunham, looks like she's still on the call. How many cats granted in the Ukraine show that was held recently?
Pam?
That show is still being scored, so we don't know. This was the first show since February of 2022, so they had several. Since then, there's been extensive bombing in Kyiv, and a lot of the utilities structure has been affected. So we don't know when another show will be held.
Okay, Carissa, you were also posing a question to Kathy Dunham. Can you repeat that question?
It was the same question because
Okay.
she's one of the people who scores the show.
Okay. Kathy Dunham, do you have additional information other than what Pam has provided?
Pam's correct. Because of the structure of this show rule, we have to manually grant the cats. It's not a system function. And it appears that there's probably going to be another 10 to 12 that will grant. So I'm Carissa, without having the numbers directly in front of me, it's probably going to look like about 20 total.
Okay, thank you for addressing Carissa's question. All right, Daryl, can you comment on the comment that Ed made on China?
Well, the way I read this, China is included with the 200.
Ed?
The version I have does not have China in there. China is the bottom line with the 175.50.
Okay, then why is China on the first line?
I do not know because the version that I've submitted doesn't have China on that first line. I'm looking at my show report.
Okay. I without having some time to research a little bit of this, I wouldn't want to change it. I mean, we are starting to come back a little bit in China, and I know there's been a few shows that have filled with 225, but I'm not aware of what the counts are.
Okay.
So Ed, are you confirming that the current show rule China is 175 and 50?
The current addendum is 175 and 50. The current
Okay.
permanent show rule is 275. So the addendum supersedes the permanent show rule for the given year. So what you have in front of you, China should be removed from their first line.
Okay, that's what I have in my report is China in the first line and the last line.
Should be removed from the first line
Okay, should be removed from the first line.
because that does not jive with the language that is up above where it says China to require 175 points for Grand Champion title and
Yeah.
50 points for the Grand Premier title.
Okay. Okay, very good. Rachel?
I'm confirming that's a CFA secretary issue. I cut and pasted the format of the table so I could get it in there. It's pretty complicated, and unfortunately, that was my fault. I left the word China in there. So it's correct as it looks like Eileen has edited.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And can we confirm that the next block is correct from maritime to accept China? Is that
That's
all?
correct.
That is
Yep.
correct. Okay. And then the third section, Russia.
That is correct.
Okay, and then to China. Okay, very good. Just so we're all clear on what the motion is. Russell?
Yeah, I just want to confirm that I think China should stay 175 to 50. I've been back and forth, and the shows basically are 75, 80. I just came back last weekend, it was 42. The 225 shows are held by one group. And it's not, that's one group that just gets that count. The basic other ones are 75 to 80 to 100 that I've judged in. So I think that's a good thing to stay at 175 to 50.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Russell. Daryl?
I was just going to make a comment about the closed parenthesis after accept China, but Eileen corrected it already.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right. Any objections to this motion? Okay, lower your hand. I'll call for the vote. If you're in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Daryl, Pam, Carol, Russell, Kenny, Marilee, Holly, Rachel, Janet, Dorianne, Ann, Aki, Vicky, and Kathy. Lower your hand. If you're opposed, raise your hand. Carissa, lower your hand. And if you're an abstention, raise your hand. No abstentions. Rachel?
That's 16 yes, 1 no, 0 abstentions.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, add on to number 8.
Okay, number 8 is a current addenda, but no one asked to bring it forward for the current year, so it will expire if the board takes no action. What that will mean is that for national awards, championship cats will need to earn 4,300 points. Premiership cats will need to earn 2,200. Kittens 1,500 and household pets 1,100. And in all the top 100 rings will be scored for championship and premiership and household pet. Top 40 rings for kittens.
Okay, Daryl,
I move the addendum be extended for the 25-26 show season.
okay. Carissa, are you seconding?
With the reservation to vote no.
Okay. And Ed, you said in the beginning, when I asked for standing motions and standing second, that it was through 1 through 7 and 8, not 8 through.
I suggested that, but I think you already had a standing motion on the floor, so it's you need to vote on these anyway.
We need, right, because it's a standing motion and we
Yep.
didn't change it. And
We didn't limit it prior to it being made.
okay, and the standing motion was made by Carol, and who had the standing second when we started? Rachel, do you remember?
Yes, I did.
You did, okay. All right. Okay, Carissa,
So I know we already have a motion on this, but I'm encouraging people to please vote no on the motion and at least consider raising the numbers. 250 points in certain divisions for a national win is just too low. We need to consider how much money that it costs CFA to create these awards, particularly because we just voted down saving $32,000. We need to raise these minimums. I understand that you don't want to go all the way back to perhaps the numbers that Rich quoted, but we need to raise the minimums so that we're not putting out $51,000 worth of awards or $43,000 or whatever it is. We have a fiscal responsibility to CFA, and we need to act like we actually have that responsibility.
okay, Pam,
Problem being is that these are the minimums for regional awards as well. I have yet to have top 25 in premiership in recent times. I don't need these to go higher in order to be able to have my regional awards. That does not come out of CFA budget. That's my budget.
okay. Just a point of clarification, Carissa, I didn't quote the original numbers. I believe Ed did. And Ed, would you re-quote the numbers if this doesn't pass?
Sure. Championship 4,300, premiership 2,200, kittens 1,500, and household pets 1,100. And Pam, I would point out that the way the show rule is written, those numbers only apply to national awards. They do not apply to regional awards.
Okay. Ed, did you have any further comments?
No, I do not.
Okay, Janet,
So I remember when we lowered this, and it was because everybody was freaking out that nobody was even going to get to 2,000 points or 1,000 points. And they're way above that now. So but 4,300 is too high. Can we not do something in the middle? How do we have to do that?
okay. Thank you, Janet. Pam,
Ed, if it's only for national points, then please revise how it is headed. Because right now it says point and ring minimums for national, regional, and divisional scoring.
Right. I didn't know if these were actually going to come up for discussion. There's another portion of the show rule that provides that for regional awards, in championship, you have to have 200 points, kittens, 100 points. Premiership, 100 points, kittens were 50 and household pets were 100. So very, very low.
Ed, is that in another show rule or is that an addenda?
It's in a different portion of the permanent show rules.
Okay,
If you want to split these out, my suggestion would be not to vote on this tonight, but tell me what you want and I'll rewrite it and bring it back.
well, that is a good recommendation, but I'm not sure where Carol and Rachel are with this and if anybody wants to amend the motion.
Okay.
So Carissa made the point, she may be the only one that is in support of reducing these, so let's find out. Rachel, do you want to amend this motion? I'm sorry, Carol, do you want to amend the motion?
I'll amend it to say we'll table it until February and let Ed rewrite and bring it back.
Okay, Carol or Rachel, do you agree?
I agree.
Okay. The motion is tabled to February. Ed?
Can I ask one question?
Absolutely.
Do you want me to bring this back as an addendum? Or do you want me to bring back a change to the permanent show rule that brings the numbers down in light of what we've seen in show halls over the past few years?
I know you're not just asking me, you're asking the whole board.
Yeah, I'm asking the board. I'm just looking for some guidance so I know what I'm writing.
Carol?
I think it should remain as an addendum for the time being, because we don't know what's going to happen the following year or whatever. So I'd be happy just keeping it as an addendum for now.
Okay, Daryl?
I agree with Carol. I think it needs to just stay as an addendum right now, but we do need to vote on the motion to table.
Okay. Thank you, Daryl, for that reminder. Any further discussion on tabling the motion? Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion is tabled. Okay, Ed, we're gonna go on to 9.
Number 9.
You can
extends the
lower your
waiver-
hand.
Oh, sorry about that. There we go. Number 9 extends the waiver of the requirement that cats be shown in their region of residence in order to earn a DW in China for the 2025-2026 show season.
Carol?
Actually, my statement applies to the last, I guess it was number 8. I think that if board members have ideas about what the points should be, or if they have figures or statistics, they should please forward them to Ed as soon as possible so that he can begin working on it.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Carol. Pam?
I do not remember asking this be brought back up.
You did
Ed,
not.
I had my name on a lot of them, but I don't remember this one.
You are correct. That was an error on my part.
Okay. Pam, thank you for pointing that out. Daryl?
You put my name in then.
Okay. Daryl, you're it. You got comments on this?
No, I support it.
Okay. And I suppose your committee fully supports it as well, correct?
I didn't poll my committee, so.
Okay.
But yeah. Russell and Mary Lee are on there. Maybe you can ask them.
I will. Russell?
I support it.
Okay, Mary Lee?
In support.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Ed, number 10.
Okay, number 10, was part of an experiment for the 2024-2025 show season. It actually applies for an upcoming show in Kuwait in February. And that reduced the minimum points required for an International Division Award in kitten and premiership in the AWS geographical area.
Okay. Any further discussion? Daryl, you have any comments on this?
Yeah, we only have one show in that area, and that's Kuwait. And they have a hard time even meeting this.
So do you want to make an amendment to the proposed motion?
Well, my opinion would be just to slice them all in half. Maybe Pam could comment on it, or Kenny, since Kenny judges over there quite a bit.
Okay. Kenny, do you have any comments?
And they were very dedicated to our association. Anything we can do for them would be great. So I would take it down to 125 in championship. And they usually don't have more than 10 kittens. So even that, if they have 10 rings, it's a possibility. But yeah, just slice it on down, slice it in half.
Okay, so slicing in half is 100 points in championship, 25 points in kitten, 20 points in premiership, and 25 points in household pet. Ed, do I have that
Right.
correct?
You do, but let me point out that the current addendum does not change the championship requirement. It was 200 points. It stayed at 200 points. What changed were the requirements for kittens and premiership. So the 50 points for kittens and the 40 points for premiership were the reduced numbers.
Okay, Kenny, do you still feel you want to slice this in half?
I believe they only had one cat that made a division win last year.
Okay, Daryl?
So since it's an addendum, we can change that, can't we, Ed?
Yes, you can. Given that this was experimental for a show that's coming up in February, I might suggest that you not pass this now. You wait and see what the impact was or will be on the February show. Then if you want to do it for the February 2026 show, you can pass an addendum later, after the beginning of the show season.
Well, personally, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Daryl.
Personally, I would rather go ahead and change it now.
Okay.
Okay, so
because
that's your motion, right, Daryl?
yes.
And
Kenny,
I second it.
Okay. Okay, so that is, all right.
So we're going slicing everything in half.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion on the amendment to this motion. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing no objections.
Excuse me, one other change that needs to be made. The date in the middle of the paragraph says 2024, 2025. That needs to be 2025, 2026.
Okay, thank you for catching that. Okay. Are there any objections? Kenny, you're gonna object?
I don't have an objection. I'd like to comment. So this is for next year?
Yep.
Or not this season?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no objections, the amendment passes. Now, Ed, do we have to vote on the whole motion?
So you just voted on amending,
it.
yeah. Well, I mean, Carol had brought the motion,
Correct.
and so she could, if she's in agreement, it's mover's privilege.
Yeah.
Okay. Carol, you're in agreement?
Yes, I am.
Rachel, you're in agreement?
Yes.
Okay, so now we vote on the whole motion, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any objections? Okay, seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Okay, on to number 11.
Number 11 is extends for the 2025-2026 show season, the reduction in the minimum points required for an ID award in the Singapore geographical area.
Okay, Daryl, comments?
Yeah, this is another one where it's sort of landlocked, and they do have a show next weekend, I believe. And I don't know how many entries they have in that. I think it's I can find it real quick here.
$98, Daryl.
Is it 98? Okay, thank you. So just let me look at the breed summary real quick here. So they've got 22 kittens, and what do they got here? Requirement for kittens, 50 points. So again, this is another one that I think, I mean, it's not going to help the show next weekend, but for 2025, 2026, I'm not sure that they have more than one show a year there. So again, I would cut these in half.
That's your amendment?
That's my amendment.
Okay. Simple math, 50 points in championship, 25 points in kitten, 50 points in premiership, and 25 points in household pet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you could.
May I have a second?
Actually, it's up to Carol whether she wants to.
I agree to amend it.
Okay. And Rachel, you agree?
I do.
Okay, well then we're gonna do this all in one block then,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. That's easy enough. Any further discussion? Any objections? Okay, seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Okay, Ed, do you have anything further you want to share with the board?
That was the last action item. We're hoping to have show rules for next season wrapped up by the end of the February board meeting, so if something else comes to mind, please get it to me as soon as you can.
Okay, Rachel?
I do have to go back and revisit number 3 in this table with the number of rings held at a show and the rings present for the cat to be an account. The edits in that section didn't transmit. They should be for 4 rings held. Rings present for cat to be in the count is changed from 4 to 3. 7 rings held changed from 6 to 5. 8 rings held changed from 7 to 6. 9 or 10 rings held changed from 8 to 7. It was correct in the report. It just didn't transmit into the compiled reports.
I didn't get all that.
Can you do them again, Rachel?
Sure. 4 rings held is changed from 4 to 3 rings.
Okay.
7 rings held changed from 6 to 5.
Okay.
8 rings held changed from 7 to 6.
Okay.
9 and 10 are changed from 8 to 7.
Okay. And Ed, do we have to re-vote on that because we all voted on what was on the screen?
It would be safest if you did.
Okay. I'm accepting Carol's standing, Rachel's standing second. Is there any further discussion on the corrections for number 3? Rachel, do you have comments?
Nope, I'll take my hand down.
Okay. Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Rachel, thank you for correcting that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Back to Ed. Does anybody have any further questions or comments for Ed in show rules? Ed, seeing no questions, thank you to you and your committee. We're going to move on to legislative. George, I see you're with us.
And I'm unmuted.
Okay, welcome to the meeting, George.
Hope I'm glad to be here. You've all read the report. There is one thing, though, that I want to go into in a little more detail. Could we scroll to the top of page 53, please? One more.
That's 53.
Oh, it's different on mine for some reason. Continue scrolling right there. Interesting. The one I have is numbered differently. Anyway, last week I was talking to Rich and Kathy and Howard about just a quirky number that had come up that I'd read the other day, that of 15,000 bills introduced in Congress, only 100 or so had passed. And I thought that was interesting to bring up here, because part of what I think people were asking back in October was, why don't we do more to communicate with people in the fancy about some potential bills out there? And I think when you see that Congress had 15,000 bills and only 100 passed, a lot of bills don't make it. A lot of bills are DOA. They're never going to go anywhere. The author may put them up just as a trial balloon to see what happens. Nothing ever materializes. It never happens. The typical procedure in most states, Nebraska being the exception, is you file in one house, there's a committee hearing, it goes to a floor vote, it goes to the other house, there's a committee hearing, it goes to a floor vote, it gets passed, the governor signs it. That's a lot of different places to intervene, and the places you intervene depend on how much that particular bill needs intervention. If something's DOA, you don't want to be putting an alert out. We track about 1,000 bills a year for CFA legislation, and that's 3 a day. So if we put out 3 alerts a day that a bill was being introduced, then put 3 alerts out at each time it got advanced to committee, and then put out 3 alerts, people would be getting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 alerts a day. It would be like Chicken Little. Nobody would pay attention to us anymore. So what we try to do is, when we track bills, it's a little bit of science and it's a little bit of voodoo. If we see a bill that looks like it's not going anywhere, we often just ignore it until it does. And this isn't just our decision. The Pet Advocacy Network actually has people everywhere that do analyses of this. And they may look at a bill and say, okay, this particular person who introduced the bill is actually a junior member. They've never gotten anything passed. They're not a high priority of passage. Or it may be, this is one of the members of the power structure in that house. This bill's going to take off like a ton of bricks. So you try to make a determination which ones need the most intervention earliest. There are certain exceptions, and we had an exception this past year with the New Hampshire bill that was trying to outlaw Persians and a lot of other breeds. That was such an onerous bill that even though we didn't expect it to go anywhere, and even though we don't have a lot of people in New Hampshire to oppose it, we jumped on that right away because it was such a bad idea. We didn't want it to get traction and didn't want people to pick it up in other places, which we're already seeing in Ojai that it's been picked up. So some bills we jump on immediately because they're just so inherently dangerous or affect something so critical to us. Once a bill starts moving, you respond to it differently at different levels. When a bill is first introduced and you want to make changes, you deal with the author. When you're dealing with the author, you don't come in and say, boy, this bill sucks. What you say is, boy, your heart is in the right place. I really understand what you're trying to do with this. And this is how we're going to fix it. And they either listen to you or they laugh you out of the office, but that's the approach you use. When it gets assigned to a committee, you then try to focus on whatever that committee's area of expertise is. If it's a local government committee and their primary concern is how is this going to impact local governments, those are the issues you address to that committee. So when people ask, well, why don't you put out an alert for form letters? The letters you're going to send are going to depend on the stage of the proceeding. It's like playing a football game. You know, what's your defense going to be? Well, it depends on what the opposition plays are running. You have to be flexible. So we often face bills that die on their own, and you don't hear about them because they died on their own, and we're not going to scream for your attention on something that's going nowhere. Rarely do we have massive letter writing campaigns. We did a few years ago with some of the Animal Welfare Act amendments, and we've done it with a few other things. But for the most part, letters on a particular issue change during the legislative process. You can't just say, this is the letter you need to send. Plus, I've got to tell you that congressmen are not stupid. You know, elected representatives are not stupid. Most of us don't send money to that wonderful Nigerian prince that keeps asking for money. They don't either. They know what spam looks like. They know what spam smells like. They go out of their way to filter out the spam so it doesn't even get to them. On many local legislatures or state legislatures, you no longer send in emails. They have a submission form that you have to fill out in order to submit a comment on a bill. And one of the first things they ask you in that submission form is, where do you live? Because they want to address their constituents' needs, not somebody in California writing a letter about something happening in New Hampshire. So I think people believe it is a much simpler process than it really is. But over the course of the year, we've tracked close to 1,000 bills. We've intervened when we thought our intervention would help. And we've worked with others in doing so. The New Hampshire bill, most of the heavy lifting was done by AKC. They had a lot of people out there. They had a lot of boots on the ground there. They were able to get a lot of work done, and we're still working with them. I'm working with an AKC ad hoc group that was created during that, and we still meet once or twice a month to talk about some of these breed bans that are going on in places like Ojai and how they might impact other areas and what we can do to forestall them. So often in my legislative reports, I mention how we pick bills for tracking, and I don't think I've done that recently. And that's what I wanted to get through here. Not that there are 15,000 bills in Congress that we care about, but that legislation is more complicated and more subtle than a lot of people understand. And simply doing a full court press all the time is unproductive. You can only rally the troops so many times before they get burned out and they get buried in the cacophony of every day putting out another alert telling people about things that probably aren't going to pass. So there is a certain amount of judgment that we do in terms of which bills we panic about and which ones we kind of leave on the back burner. And I just wanted to give you something. And I know this is a very disproportionate number. Congress has been extremely dysfunctional these last few years. Any state legislature that only passed 1 out of 150 bills would probably get voted out of office. But thanks to gerrymandering and safe districts, congressmen seem to live forever, no matter how bad a job they do. And especially in years with divided government, like we've had the last couple of years. So that's just what I wanted to expand upon, is how we pick bills for tracking, and then how we react to those bills in terms of putting out alerts when we think we can do the most good. And I think that that's something I didn't stress back in October that I should have stressed now. The other thing I wanted to mention is on the first page, I mentioned that only one person on the board had contacted me after the October board meeting. I wasn't sure if it would be better to name him or not name him. I think I'm going to say it. It was Carissa. And I've been working with her on trying to get more information to her earlier in the process. And I think over time, we're going to be able to improve it. You know, we've already started putting out on the newsletter. Excuse me, putting out on our back up, sending out to the regional list anything that we put in the newsletter that affects somebody in their list in their region. So, for example, when Ojai, California came up, and we did an article about Ojai, California, I posted on the regions 2 and 5 list because California splits between 2 states. I mean, splits between 2 regions. But those are the things that we're trying to do, how we're trying to get the information out. And I have to say that I was a bit blindsided earlier in this meeting when I discovered the newsletter is going away, or it might be. We've been talking, currently our blog is on a personal website, and we're trying to migrate it over to the CFA website. And we're going to be working on that in the coming months. And I don't know how CFA switching over to a blog is going to affect that. So some of this is kind of new to me too. And that's the thing I wanted to add though, was.
Okay, thank you, George.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for George specific to the legislative committee? No questions, George. Do you want to comment on the protest committee report?
That's just an open session holding place. The bulk of the protest committee is going to be in closed session. There's nothing to deal with right now.
Okay, George, thank you to both your committees for all the work you do. And we'll see you in executive session.
Goodbye for now.
Okay. Moving on to experimental format, Rachel.
Thank you. We actually have 2 requests. I received one right after the meeting started that I sent out to the board, but it's pretty boilerplate. Actually, both of these summit requests are copies of what the clubs did last year successfully. In the case of the Great Lakes, Great Mains, they did the summit one time last year. The second one is for the Global Egyptian Mao group that I think this is their 8th year of doing the same summit. So it's outlined here, very similar to what we did last year. So I would like to move for the Great Lakes, Great Mains, that we grant an exception to Show Rule 7.01 and allow the Great Lakes, Great Mains to hold a Maine Coon Breed Summit officiated by the regular judges in a separate ring at its August 30, 31, 2025, 8-ring back-to-back show in Columbus, Ohio in Region 4 as presented. The additional awards will not be scored. That's my motion.
Okay, Rachel or Aline, can you correct that in the motion, the dates? Carol, are you seconding the motion?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. So Aline, you need to correct August. It needs to say August 30th and 31, 2025. Okay, thank you for doing that. Is there any further discussion? Is there any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Hey, Rachel, you have a second one?
Yes, I do. This is the Global Egyptian Mao group. I'll just do a quick recap of their request. This is for their show with the Cat Fanciers of Washington on July 26th and 27th, 2025. They say for the past 8 years, with the support of the CFA board, GEMS has successfully produced breed summits that take breed focus to another level. The board has graciously supported our requests to have combined breed judging for the Egyptian Maos. I can read the entire thing if you like, or just a reference. This is the same as they've done in past years. And actually, they've outlined it very well in their actual motion. And if I can read that, it's a little lengthy, but it's very inclusive. to grant an exception to show rules 7.01 and 11.35 to allow the Global Egyptian Mouse Society and the Cat Fanciers of Washington to hold breed specialty rings for Egyptian mouse in the all breed rings at their co-sponsored 8-ring back-to-back show on July 26, 27, 2025 in Chantilly, Virginia, Region 7 in the following manner. All classes, kittens, championship, and premiership will be judged consecutively and awarded in the usual manner, which will include top 3 breed awards. Then a breed specialty final for each breed will be held across all classes, i.e. including kittens, championship, and premiership competing together in a breed specialty final. Awards will be given based on the total breed entry for each breed as follows: up to 15 entries, top 3, 15 to 20 entries, top 4, 25 or more entries, top 5. No points will be associated with these awards. That's my motion.
Matt, Carol, you're second.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Just a reminder, this was not a pre-notice motion. Outside the 24-hour required time, it requires 2/3 to pass. Any objections to the motion? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously.
That's it
Rachel?
that's it for my experimental show format report. Thank you for your support for these clubs.
Okay, Rachel. Does anybody have any questions for Rachel on her experimental formats? All right, Rachel, thank you. We are now moving into, on my sheet says special reports, select or ad hoc committees. I don't have anything. Rachel, do you have anything?
Nothing has come up.
Okay, the next one is other committees. Do you have anything?
No other committees have submitted reports.
Okay, and we moved new business to executive session. So we go on to old business.
That's correct.
Okay. And old business has to do with the October board meeting. Okay. There was discussion on moving the October board meeting back to the first weekend in October. I think I'd like to do this in a motion. If that's the case, may I have a motion? Pam, are you making a motion?
Just a minute.
Okay.
Yes, yes, I move that we move the October 2025 Zoom board meeting to the first weekend of October, which is the 4th and 5th of October, 2025.
Okay, Daryl, are you second?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Pam, do you have comments?
Yes, we used to have this in our former constitution where we designated the first weekend of October for the October board meeting and the first weekend of February for the February board meeting. Since we're going to Zoom to save money, this makes sense. We were all just exhausted for this last board meeting after the international. And I believe going back to these set dates would be really great, but I'm just asking the motion for the October 2025 board meeting to be on the first weekend.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Carissa?
I know that we had talked about how it might be more conducive for the meetings to be not on weekends. For one, there's several board members who are judges and it pulls them off their availability for shows for the weekends. And let's keep in mind that unfortunately, our judging program is shrinking dramatically so. And I think it's detrimental to the clubs to pull off so many judges from the weekend. Additionally, when we have it on the weekend, if people are at shows, they can't listen to the meeting while they're at a show. You could try, but it's extremely difficult. I have tried. But a lot more people were able to listen in on the meeting, although some may have been at work. It was a lot easier for a lot more people to be able to hear the meeting during the open session. And finally, I'm really in support of not having our Zoom meetings on weekends, because some of us are extremely limited in our ability to be able to get to shows and support our regional shows. And I would really like to consider looking at other days of the week. We don't always have to use a weekend. It would just, I don't know, I'm just asking we really need to consider other options here.
Okay, Carissa, thank you. Carol?
Contrary to what Carissa just stated, I think it should be on a weekend. I think that having it during the week creates a problem for some of our board members who are still working. So that means that they have to take time off from work in order to attend the board meeting. Also, I think that a lot of our constituents work also, and they're not able to listen in on the meetings. I did take note of people that were attending and listening in on the October meeting, and the numbers were very, very low as compared to, for instance, this meeting or our other weekend meetings. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. Pam, I'm going to call on you last, since you're the maker of the motion. I'm going to have everybody make their points and ask any questions first, and then I'll call on you last. Vicky?
Yeah. I also prefer the weeknights as opposed to the weekend. If we're starting at, your 7 p.m., our 4 p.m., then most people are done with work by then. If you need to, you can spread it across 3 evenings, but the weekend is just too much. And yeah, our clubs are having a hard time. We need to be able to support them. They don't have shows during the weekend. So I agree with Carissa.
Okay, Vicky, thank you. Carol?
Here I go again. I think that if we want to be on the board, that we have to accept that there are certain dates that we're not going to be able to attend shows. And the same goes for judges that are on the board. There are certain times when they're not going to be available to judge. It's just part of being on the board of directors.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Carissa?
It's really easy to say that when you come from a part of the country where you can get to a bunch of shows that are only a few hours away. Some of us live in parts of the country that have single-digit number of shows that we can get to within a 12-hour drive. I came to the board knowing full well the time I was going to have to commit to it, and I have a job where I have to work a certain number of weekends. So, it's not just pulling me away that particular weekend. I'm trying to point out that, yeah, some people will have to take off work in order to have a board meeting during the week. I think a lot of people were exhausted because it was after the international show. I certainly would think we would try to do a board meeting that wasn't right after the international show. But I'd like to point out that I'm also not just thinking of myself, I'm thinking of clubs that are struggling to find judges. And when we pull 8 or 9 judges off a weekend because they're at a board meeting, that is something that we need to consider. We have to consider the impact to the entire association, not just ourselves.
Carol, were you done? Okay, thank you. Marilee?
Yes, I'm a little bit torn on this because we have precious few in-person board meetings anymore. And I think we do get a little different insight within ourselves when we have in-person board meetings. We can talk about things kind of after hours, and I'm not sure if it's worth it, especially given the financial strain that it may cause. That's the only thing that I have a slight reservation about, is that it won't be an in-person meeting. But
Okay, thank you, Marilee. Kathy?
So I thought the discussion we were having was whether or not it would be on the weekend or in the middle of the week. The Zoom option is something if we are going to be fiscally responsible, we have to have these meetings via Zoom. It can cost up to $50,000 to bring a board and support into an area for an in-person meeting. And I know we love and so do I, the team building and the conversations you have afterwards. But at this point in time, it is just not fiscally responsible to do so. So I don't think at least it's my understanding that October, be it when it is, either a weekend or a weekday, is a Zoom meeting.
Okay, Kathy, thank you for bringing that up. Point of clarification here. Pam's motion was specific to the date and being a Zoom meeting. Howard, you're last to speak on this, and then I'm turning it over to Pam for closing. Howard.
I'm all for the weekend because I'll probably be working again next year as well.
Okay, Pam, take us home with this, please.
Okay. One, I just need to address the evening meetings. It's not evening for Polly. It's not evening for me. It's not evening for Aki. And it's not evening for anybody from the International Division. So a weekend meeting is something that can take in all of us at a somewhat normal time. But as a board member, I am a board member and have been a board member for God knows how many years. And that is my focus, is to do the business of the organization. If it means I miss a show and I'm not judging a show, that's part of the job. But I believe that we need the first weekend of October. That's why I brought this back. It is also, I've talked with Aline about this, of going back to this. She is in favor, or was when we did talk. I believe that will be more productive and have it on the weekend instead of interrupting and people having to take off work. It also expands on those that can fill our jobs later. If we want younger people in the cat fancy, they're going to have jobs. So let's not overburden everybody, and let's go back to the first weekend of October.
Okay, thank you, Pam. I'm calling for the vote. If you're in favor, raise your hand. Russell, Carol, Pam, Rachel, John, Polly, Daryl, Marilee, Howard, Dorianne, Kenny, Ann, and Aki. Lower your hand. If you're opposed, raise your hand. Vicky, Carissa, Janet. Lower your hand. And if you're an abstention, raise your hand. No abstentions. Rachel, when you're ready.
Thank you. I did not capture Dorianne, Kenny, or Kathy Calhoun. Sorry.
I may have gone too fast. We'll start with Kenny. Were you a yes, no, or abstention, Kenny?
I was a yes.
Thank you, Kenny. Dorianne, were you a yes, no, or abstention?
I was a yes.
Thank you, Dorianne. And Kathy, were you a yes, no, or abstention?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, that's 14 yes, 3 no, 0 abstentions.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Pam, for making the motion. Rachel, I believe we have finished all the open session agenda items. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to adjourn the meeting